Every social media site has a dark side. On Reddit, finding it is surprisingly easy. Sometimes it's hidden inside a forgotten community with a few thousand members, and other times it's sitting in plain sight, buried in the comment section of a post with millions of views. Most people scroll past these things without a second thought, but every now and then, someone keeps digging and discovers something far worse than they expected. From a Reddit account connected to a real-world tragedy, to communities filled with people sharing their deranged interests. Today, we're diving into some disturbing corners of Reddit. And make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's get into it. Grober. Every day, Reddit is flooded with users who like to talk about the most morbid, terrifying, and disgusting things that are known to man. They're fascinated by it. People want to understand why such awful things happen. They want to know how we can make sure it never happens again. Sometimes they even get into arguments about how to do that. Things turn political and then hostile, and people get pissed off at each other. They call each other names and someone ends up blocked. But that's just a classic Reddit discussion. But sometimes there's more to it. Users aren't just angry with one another. They're actually concerned. Whoever they're fighting with seems to be more than just someone they disagree with, but someone that actually seems unwell, maybe even dangerous. This is how many felt when they came across a user by the name of Grober. At first, a lot of his comments don't seem that insane. They're definitely problematic, to say the least, even unhinged, like this one, which was in response to a mass attack that happened in Washington. He says, quote, "There has never been a matriarchal society that hasn't ended in chaos. Men made the world what it is today, which is why I don't blame women. They are products of men just like men. Somewhere along the line, an entire generation of weak men sent us into the tailspin we are experiencing. When we see mass attacks, the majority aren't disturbed men. It's fatherless men. Either absent or weak fathers leave boys to be raised by women, a task women aren't capable of. Nature normalizes violence, not society. Nature is violence, and we are trying to escape our nature. This is what also decreases accountability for the abuse of women, as their fathers aren't taking up the pitchforks that they should be when their daughters are harmed. As for incels, even though the zeitgeist has grabbed onto them, they are not horrible people. They aren't necessarily wrong about most things, and the majority aren't violent towards anyone besides themselves. If any group of people should receive sympathy, it is by far incels. Like I said, problematic. But what becomes concerning is that when you take a look at his account, it becomes obvious very quickly that Grober is obsessed with everything and anything to do with mass killings and the perpetrators behind them. Almost every comment he makes is in a subreddit dedicated to talking about things of that nature. And for the most part, it doesn't seem like Grober has that much sympathy for the people affected. He seems more focused on other things, such as the voice of the victims, like their literal voice. In a post with a Facebook Live video of someone who is actively trying to survive during a shooting, he comments, "What an annoying, extremely unlikable voice." And then he doubles down on it in the replies with, quote, "Then we are talking past each other because I am talking specifically about this video. I've heard plenty of panicky voices and you always empathize with them. even the squeaky women. This one is just so frustrating. It destroys your hope they are okay. And now is the time that his profile starts to set off some alarm bells. A lot of them. Not only is that all he talks about are shootings and mass tragedies, but he also loses all empathy for the people who have gone through them, all because he doesn't like their voice. If that's all it takes to not care whether someone lives or dies, how much does Grober really care about the people affected by this? Is his fascination out of concern or with the offenders themselves? He even says that he believes out of all groups of people, it's incels that deserve the most amount of sympathy. If that's the demographic he's most concerned with, it becomes hard to believe that Grober has good intentions or even good thoughts when it comes to this. But people arguing with him probably think that all of it stays behind the screen. There's not much harm that he can do digitally, except possibly hurt someone's feelings. That is, unless Grober decides to exit the internet and enter real life, which is exactly what he does. And as he crosses over, he takes his opinions with him, and what he decides to do with them creates more than just an argument. It changes people's lives, including the life of Victor Gomez. Victor was from Greenwood, Indiana. He had lived for years in this small town where not much of anything happened. Everyone got along well, and he was friends with a lot of his neighbors, some who he had even run into on his trips to the Greenwood Park Mall on July 17th, 2022, a day that he would meet a new neighbor, one who was not that friendly, someone named Jonathan Douglas Saberman. The two would be introduced when Victor was heading into the bathroom, and Jonathan was heading out. It was almost 6 o'clock, and he had just spent the last hour in one of the stalls that Victor would be heading towards. But it wasn't an upset stomach that kept him in there so long, and he wasn't hiding away to doom scroll. Instead, he was preparing to unload the 3 weapons he had brought into the mall with him, and he was planning how to kill everyone in sight. And as soon as he finally made his exit out of the restroom, Victor was the first person he saw. Their introduction began and ended in about 5 seconds. Jonathan Douglas Saperman would be the last person that Victor would ever meet. Jonathan, who was otherwise known as Grober, or sometimes Grober Gur Maniac on another account that he used. On this account, Jonathan hadn't had as much activity, but what he does have is even more haunting than what I read previously. He says, "For 3 years, I have saved nearly every firearm posted to this sub. Here is a collage of the majority." What Jonathan did that day at the mall wasn't out of impulse or a moment of insanity. It was calculated and precise. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. And his Reddit history shows the amount of research he did into how he could do just that. His constant posting and commenting about shootings was not just an interest, it was disturbed. There was always something sinister behind it. Even Jonathan himself knew that, because right before he went to the mall that day, he burned his laptop in the oven of his apartment and put his phone into the toilet. He also deleted most of his accounts, at least the ones that weren't already suspended, but we're still able to see a lot of his content through what's been archived online. It still poses the question if there was more that he was hiding, that if he said even worse things online, things that hinted at other violent urges he acted on. And it's horrifying to wonder what else Jonathan may have posted before he tried to erase his digital footprint. But even without those missing pieces, we know how dangerous he really was, because it wasn't just Victor who died that day. 3 innocent people were killed before Jonathan could be stopped, and he likely would have killed many more. The attack only lasted 15 seconds because an armed civilian, legally carrying a handgun, reacted almost immediately and shot him. Police believe that if he hadn't been stopped, many more who were there that day would also be dead. Jonathan had no intention of stopping. And looking back at his account now, it's hard not to see the signs, the obsession, the lack of empathy, the fascination with violence. But that's the uncomfortable part about people like Jonathan. Those signs only seem obvious after something terrible happened. Before that, he was just another username, another person arguing in the comment sections, another account you forget about 5 minutes later. Until one day, they're not. And by then, it's too late. And rest in peace to the 3 victims: Pedro Pineda, Rosa Maureen Rivera de Pineda, Pedro's wife, and Victor Gomez. Pedro and Rosa were a married couple eating in the food court, and Victor Gomez was a local businessman and a father. According to the people who knew him, he had been preparing for his daughter's birthday celebration later that day. It's heartbreaking, and may the victims rest in peace. Galapagos. Being born. That is the response that one user by the name of Galapagos has under a post titled, "What was the most unfair and infuriating thing that's ever happened to you?" Being born, which is an incredibly depressing answer. Most people have answers like, "My father hit me," or "My teacher yelled at me in front of the entire class." But Galapagos isn't like most people. At first, he blends in with the rest of Reddit. His account is full of memes and posts about video games. He's very active on subreddits like r/showerthoughts, where he posts things like, "There are more airplanes in the sea than submarines in the sky." Another Reddit user with too much time on their hands, so why talk about it? Well, it's when I take a look at the comments that things get interesting. It takes some digging around to do, because Galapagos has probably hundreds, if not thousands, of comments about random stuff that's pretty irrelevant. But in between all of that is where things take a turn. His comment about being born was not an isolated comment. In fact, it's a sentiment that's repeated pretty often on his profile. One post asks, "What are your thoughts on yourself?" He says, "I'm a useless, ungrateful waste of space." It's things like that repeated over and over and over again. "I wish they were more strict, so I wouldn't be the useless waste of space that I am now." Or, "I would experience being a kid again. I miss being genuinely excited to wake up every day when everything was new. I want to relive being able to have free time and live stress-free." But the saddest comment of them all is one in response to a question asking, "Redditors with depression, what kept you from committing S-word?" And he says, "The fact that everyone I know would feel partially guilty and will carry pain that they aren't responsible for the rest of their lives just because I was selfish." It's terrible that he feels this way, but he's not unique in this. Reddit is full of users who suffer from depression and want to do the same things that he does. Just look at any subreddit about depression or anxiety, and you'll see thousands upon thousands of people who feel similarly, especially with that last comment. That's a common thought process for many people who consider S-word. So many people feel like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They see no end to their pain, but don't want to hurt their loved ones. It usually goes one of two ways. Some people find help that gets them out of that place, or they end up losing that battle, which is heartbreaking for everyone involved. But this is where Galapagos is different. It's at this moment he decides he'll figure out a way to get out of this position in a way that no average Reddit user has done before. But he doesn't do it alone. His brother has also suffered from severe depression his entire life and felt the same way. He wanted a way out of the misery he was in. Now, they were both young, both still being under 25, but they felt that they had tried every solution possible, yet nothing did the trick. So the only solution left was to everything. But again, that same question cropped up. What about their family? Well, like I said, they were ending everything. They came to an agreement that if they didn't feel better in a year, they would commit S-word and kill their family. They lasted a month. In that month, things felt as bad as they ever did, sometimes even worse. They felt like they had all the evidence they needed. So, on April 3rd, 2021, Farhan Tawid, who was the real 19-year-old behind Galapagos, and his brother Tanvir, committed S-word, along with killing their entire family. Right before the brothers acted out their plan, Farhad posted a link to a Google Doc on his Instagram, which led to a lengthy explanation of why he and his brother were doing this. The post read, "If the only reason to live is for happiness, then logically, you shouldn't live if you aren't happy. That makes sense, right? Imagine waking up, being waterboarded for an hour, electrocuted for 20 minutes, forced to watch the first half of season 9 of The Office, and finally put to sleep. Now imagine repeating that cycle daily until you died. In this scenario, I'm sure that every single one of you would prefer death, whether you want to admit it or not. Although, I'm not in quite as bad of a situation. I'm bad enough to warrant S-word. I live in so much pain and turmoil that it isn't worth going on. I'm aware that my death will bring sadness to everyone else, but I guess I'm just too selfish to care. Not selfish enough, however. There's my family. The only reason I forced myself to live for 19 years, I know I said I operate on logic, but the one emotional aspect of my life is the only reason I'm here. I love my family. I genuinely do. And that's exactly why I decided to kill them. If I just committed S-word, they would be miserable. They would spend the rest of their lives feeling guilt, despair, and a multitude of other adjectives that mean sad. Even after they got over it, it would become a permanent facet of their lives, i.e., someone I loved committed S-word and I couldn't do anything about it. Instead of having to deal with the aftermath of my S-word, I could just do them a favor and kill them. None of us would ever have to feel sad ever again. That's only a quarter of the entire note, but it's heavy enough to break anyone's heart. In other sections of the note, he also goes into his backstory and history with depression, and one of the most devastating details about all of it is that he did reach out for help. multiple times. He told his dad, who got him into a camp for kids who were also struggling. What he learned there helped for a time, but the symptoms of depression eventually came back. Then, when this plan started to take shape in his head, he told some of his college roommates. Their answer was to ask him to move out. The only person that really sympathized with him was his brother, who was in just as much pain as he was. The combination of all of that turmoil resulted in this horrific end to their family. Farhad was only 19 and his brother 21. Them, along with Farhad's twin sister, their parents, and their grandmother. Rest in peace to all the victims. r/regretful parents. No one says that having a kid is easy. Look at any young family with even one baby, and you're bound to find bags under their eyes. Anyone going into having a child should be doing so under the assumption that it will be hard. Taking care of another living, breathing human is extremely hard work. Yet, hundreds of millions of families do it every year. It's one of life's biggest goals, a milestone for many people. And when they have one, they want 2 or 3 more. Because despite these sleepless nights, baby throw up, and temper tantrums, it can be one of the most fulfilling things a human can ever do. There's no love like one between a parent and a child, and all of the difficult parts are worth it to be able to experience that. Well, that is for most people. Not for the users of r/regretful parents. The subreddit describes itself as, quote, a safe place for parents who think they shouldn't have become parents in the first place, on its homepage. While that's a jarring introduction, the creators and moderators seem like they have good intentions. In the About section, it says that it's somewhere parents can vent and get anything they need off their chest, even feelings that they may feel guilty about. And some posts on here are just that. They're from parents who are simply exhausted. They have way too much on their plate and don't even feel like a human anymore. One parent compares it to a prison in this post, which reads as follows: "When will I stop feeling like a slave? I am tired of drop-offs and pickups, homework, making dinner, washing and ironing clothes, medical appointments. I am sick of all of this. I have severe depression and I barely want to take care of myself, so this is starting to take everything I have in me. This is a job I really wish I could just quit." Posts like these don't even necessarily seem regretful. They just seem sad. Users who are in a really difficult position and don't know where to turn. If they were given more help, would they feel this way? Because a lot of these parents don't come across like they actually hate their child. They just want a day off, which is a normal feeling. And it's good they have a safe space to talk about that. But r/regretful parents does have a dark side. There are posts on here that feel less like a vent and more of a statement that having children is not what they want, no matter the circumstances. One post reads, "Anyone else just not like the kids in general? I've never liked kids, and the older I get, the less I like them. I'm gonna say some mean things here, just putting it out there. I hate how they don't know how to use common sense yet. I get tired of their stories that drag on for what feels like hours. They want to be up everyone's asses constantly and cuddle all the time. They complain about the dumbest stuff. They argue with other kids all the time. Their drama is pointless. They don't even have any sense of good taste. They're hella dramatic about every stupid thing that happens to them. Their high-pitched voices even irritate me. Am I just the world's biggest a-hole? Or does anyone else feel this way? Maybe this is another tired mom or dad and I should give them the benefit of the doubt. But it honestly just seems like they don't want anything at all to do with children. And that's fine if you don't have kids. Now, they probably thought that they'd feel different towards their own children, but that's a pretty big risk to take. It's essentially a gamble on a human life. It's not a stuffed animal. It's a real person that's relying 100% on their parents to not just take care of them physically, but also emotionally. And when a person doesn't even want to be around their child, it can have real serious consequences. One user posts on another subreddit called r/childfree and says, "I am the child of regretful parents." The post reads, "I grew up with a deep sense of not being wanted. I grew up feeling like just because I existed, my mom couldn't live the life she wanted to. These feelings bleed into my adulthood, and they are painful to work through. I was the unplanned child who arrived at the worst time, and I will never forget the deep, empty brokenness and helplessness I felt as a kid." I know this sub is CF, but if this post so happens to come across someone who's a fence sitter, take this as a sign that if you have even the smallest inkling that you shouldn't have kids, don't. Your child will feel your regret even if you never say it out loud. This is what I wish more parents understood. It doesn't seem like the users of regretful parents understand that, unfortunately. Of course, no parent is perfect and will always make mistakes, but when that first mistake is having the child to begin with, that kid will remember that forever, like the OP said in the last post. And no matter how much the parent vents about it on Reddit, that feeling won't go away. And that's for both of them, because on r/regretful parents, everyone loses. Mom and dad are stressed and on the brink of collapse. Then their kid holds on to that stress and the cycle goes on forever. Everyone is miserable. So I can't say it's a bad thing that the subreddit exists. Some of those parents genuinely need and deserve that safe space to say whatever they want without consequence. And hopefully, when they do that, some of their depression and turmoil is relieved, and they can return to their children in a better state of mind. But hiding in the shadows beneath all of that are parents who honestly should have never become parents to begin with. People that despise every single thing that has to do with having a child. Like users who title a post with, "Kids are not worth it any time in life." You know what nobody really tells you? Kids aren't just a tough few years and then it gets easier. No, it's a lifetime subscription and you can't cancel. From the moment they show up, sleep is a distant memory. You don't rest anymore. You grab broken little scraps of unconsciousness between crying fits, nightmares, and "Mom, I'm thirsty." Forget cooking a decent meal. You're lucky if you can microwave something without a meltdown happening in the background. And going anywhere? That becomes a military operation. Packing bags, snacks, spare clothes, arguing about shoes, strapping them into the car seats while they scream like you're torturing them. And then people say, "Oh, don't worry, it gets easier when they're older." Lies. Sure, they might stop needing nappies, but now you're a full-time, unpaid taxi driver. School runs, after-school activities, birthday parties, sports, friends' houses. You're basically running an Uber service that never closes. Then comes the money drain. Fees, uniforms, gadgets, clothes they grow out of in a week, braces, holidays you can't enjoy because they complain the whole time. You don't get your life back. You just upgrade to different forms of chaos. Even when they're adults, you're not free. You're worrying about them constantly, bailing them out when they make bad choices, helping them move again, lending money you'll never see back. And guess what? grandkids. The cycle restarts. You thought you'd get peace at 50? Nope. You're still wrapped up in their lives whether you like it or not. Kids are 24/7 forever. It's not 18 years and done. It's permanent. They'll still be in your head, your wallet, your schedule, and your heart until the day you die. It's users like these that go beyond needing a helping hand or even a therapist. What they need is for someone else to take care of their kid altogether. But sadly, that isn't the case for the majority of people in situations like this. What's more likely is their child will be raised in an emotionally unstable house, grow up feeling unloved, and then need therapy themselves. That is the product of regretful parents. And who knows, maybe in 20 years, children who were raised by the users of this subreddit will grow up and make their own subreddit. So they have a place to vent about all the ways they were mistreated. Users of Reddit will be stuck watching a loop of misery, burnout, and heartbreak, either until the site itself gets shut down or people stop having babies. r/ChadFish. Dating apps can be one of the most frustrating places on the internet. It's a hub for boring small talk, terrible first dates, and then the eventual ghosting. The majority of people on these apps probably feel they have had awful experiences, but none more than one half of the pool: men. It is true that they get significantly less matches than women, but whether they have a worse time is definitely arguable. Either way, many get fed up with it. They get one match a week and eventually just delete the app. But some weren't okay with that. They didn't want to throw in the towel and just give up. They felt there had to be some other option to get attention from women. So welcome to r/ChadFish. What is now a banned subreddit was once a place for online dating experiments, generally using pictures of hot guys, but all experiments are welcome, as its users describe it. What this means is that men would essentially catfish women on dating apps and then report back here with their findings. Already, I can see why it got banned. It's not off to a great start. But even that simple explanation of a regular catfishing isn't what typically happens on r/ChadFish. These users take it much farther than that. It begins with the language they use to describe women. In this post, one user asks his fellow Redditors to make a profile and see what happens with his ideas. The post reads, "Profile request. I want you to create a Chad profile no matter his personality. My request is for you to go after a specific target. I call it a settling down person. These are the type of women that many times are single mothers, or they are just women that rode the CC and now they are ready to settle down and build a family with a man they love because they are getting older, or they don't have resources, or they simply don't want to die alone. They tend to write stuff like, not here for hookups, or looking for a dad to take care of me and my beautiful child on their bio. These are women that are experts at locating betas, controlling them, and making them miserable. Those type of women tend to appear on r/where are all the good men. I want you to expose them for what they really are. Don't let me down, soldier." There's actually parts of it that I had to censor so it doesn't sound as bad as it actually is, which the way that it actually is disgusting. The way he talks about women is terrifying, but it is a prime example of why men on here are doing this, to prove that women don't care about someone's personality, but only their looks. Basically, they're trying to find any excuse as to why women don't want to date them, other than the fact that they're just not interesting people who also talk about women like they're objects. just like the OP did in that last post, who's nowhere near unique for what's to come on Chadfish. This cesspool of incels only gets more muddy and toxic. One post from June of 2019, a year before the subreddit got shut down, user Piscascore111 posted something titled 3 days and roughly 100 matches later. Luca Chadon, aka Sub Mascot, is retiring from Tinder. Here's a super freaky one he caught. He included a image of most likely a text thread from Tinder or something, but it's since been deleted. Which honestly is probably for the best, because it's probably like the hundreds of other posts on here where they show exchanges between them and women who send them explicit photos of themselves privately, meaning not for sharing, though that means nothing to the Chad Fishers. But even still, they want to talk about how horrible the women are. But it even goes beyond that. They make this experiment more risky by making up details in the profiles they create, things that would normally derail someone from ever being interested, such as them being someone who's had trouble with the law, or even someone who's attracted to minors. On one profile, their fake bio reads, Chad, 29. Sup, I'm Chad. You don't like me? Too bad. Some things you should know about me cause you'll see me with the ankle monitor. I'm a convicted offender. It's my past. Made some mistakes, but working each day to fix them. Looking for fun. Longer stuff is cool, but can't be around in a month cause I have to go back to jail for stupid things between me and my ex. She is overreacting about a few slaps I gave her a year ago. He then attaches texts from women who each question the bio and the severity of it, but then move on and talk about other things. Which, sure, is also disgusting and awful in its own way. That is, if this is something that is actually real and not just photoshopped. But even if it's not fake, and it shows that some people only swipe right based on looks instead of personality, the way that these users are proving that is not only the wrong way to go about it, but it's also just incredibly gross, disturbing, and honestly terrifying. Many people don't see it this way though. Some outsiders actually think very highly of it. Someone says, this sub is amazing. I saw a link to this place in a sub filled with deranged autists screaming about misogyny or whatever. Took a look around, and I must say, this place is absolutely ruthless, LMAO. Not an incel, nor religious, but I hate the modern dating scene as much as you, so keep up the good work in showing how superficial and destructive it all really is. Looking at this and thinking it's good work has to be the most insane take anyone could say when scrolling through Chadfish. I wonder if those people would feel the same way if they found out that all this work wasn't just kept on Reddit, but that the users also band together and discuss things on their private Discord server. This is where they could really say anything they wanted. And it wasn't just a space for them to talk poorly about women, but also somewhere they could dump even more of the explicit photos I mentioned earlier. And not just pictures that were sent on apps like Tinder or Bumble, but ones that were sent through things like Snapchat. Images that were really explicit. And so the real intent of Chadfish is revealed. Who they really are comes to surface. These aren't guys trying to question the dating app culture and bring a positive change. No matter how much they pretend like they are, they're losers that hate women, and instead of taking any accountability, they find solace in other losers who feel the same way they do. Luckily, Reddit and Discord quickly caught on and saw the not only horrific things these guys were saying, but also the illegal things they were doing. And with that, r/Chadfish met its final match and was shut down forever. But that doesn't mean they're still not out there. While some users on subreddits like r/IncelTears were celebrating the end of it, others were grieving the loss. One post on r/Tinder says, "I miss r/Chad Fish." And while I'm hoping the comments are flooded with backlash and the like, OP is not met with that. One comment says, the experiments that put the final nail in the coffin of me trusting 2/3 of the women. Seriously though, this was bad and happened multiple times and shows thirsty women will drop every gram of decency and ignore the worst stuff if the guy is hot. But luckily, that's not all the comments. Some users do have basic empathy, and on top of that, common sense. One user says, "The only way I'll ever believe into any of these experiments is if it's screen recorded. And even then, because video editing is very doable, but image editing or even fabricating a print, that's so easy. It's not even funny." They bring up a point mentioned earlier. One that apparently no users of Chad Fish see or want to see when it's brought up. The OP of the post in question even argues back with the last comment and says, "The beauty of Chad fishing is that you can do it yourself and see the same results. That's what tons of people did on r/Chadfish before it got banned. You're coping now. Like I said, you can try it yourself. You won't, however, because you're terrified that it might be true and change your entire worldview on dating. Women aren't as wonderful as you think they are." What they fail to understand is that any sane person who isn't so embarrassingly insecure that they need to hurt others to make themselves feel better doesn't want to or have the time to go and catfish women. But that's the culture of r/Chadfish and its users, who still circulate Reddit and the rest of the internet. Yes, even though all of these spaces they create, like the ones we're talking about, usually get shut down because of how vile it is. So even though it's terrifying to think about, women always have to be on the lookout for creeps like them around every corner of every site or app they go on. Because even though it's left Reddit, Chadfish will never really be gone. And alright guys, that wraps up some disturbing corners of Reddit. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel. And also comment down below on what you thought about today's video. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And would you like to see more like this in the future? And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It truly does mean the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some unexplainable true 4chan threads. And in today's video, we're diving into some amazing 4chan threads. Like, these are some of the best 4chan stories I have ever read, period. So you'll want to stick around, and I just want to say thank you so much for stopping by. It means the world. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. The channel's goal is 1 million subscribers, so it helps a ton, and I just love for you to join the community. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Spotify, all that jazz. And yeah, these stories will be unexplainable, horrifying, weird, scary, and all that stuff, but you'll definitely want to stick around. And without further ado, let's get into some unexplainable true 4chan threads. This is long, and I'm long-winded. Sorry, X. 2.5 years ago, I moved to Bloomington, Indiana. I'd recently decided to start anew. My grandfather had died and left me $15,000, and the only friend I had outside of Texas lived there. I didn't want to live in that god-awful oven of a state anymore, so Indiana seemed as good of a place as any, really. When I first got here, I moved in with my friend, who I'd known since early childhood. We dated a while back, broken things off, and become friends again. I didn't want to stay in that cramped apartment forever with her and her 2 girly girl roommates, so I quickly began looking for a piece of property to call my own. See, I wanted to raise goats eventually. I looked everywhere, hoping to do a lease purchase. I eventually found an older, early 1900s, late 1800s house about 20 minutes from town that sat comfortably on 23 acres of land and had an owner very willing to do a deal. It needed work, but came with an older barn, and it was a steal at the price it was offered at. I gave the woman who owned it $10,000, signed a lease purchase, and moved in a few weeks later. A week after me, my friend moved in. It was cheaper living with me than in her apartment. This was about 2 years ago. Picture unrelated. Immediately, we noticed some odd things. The woman we bought it from, who lives about 3 miles from here and we're now sort of friends with, wouldn't tell us much about the history of the house. Only that it was old, had been vacant for 2 years, and that it was 100% as is. She also would not go in the house more than necessary, nor would she walk the back 15 acres with us, which is all woods, or go into the barn. The few neighbors who had been there for more than a few years were a bit surprised we bought the place, but weren't as freaked out about it as the prior owner. I assumed it was because of all the work the property needed. There were 2 broken windows, most of the doors jammed, it needed some new wiring, 1 step was broken in the stairs, etc. Within a month, the place looked brand new. We shined the hardwood floors, painted the walls, replaced broken windows, and fixed the doors. It looked like a historical home. There were some oddities though. Like I said, first I noted that the attic's walls were 100% unfinished, aside from a few barely hanging panels of drywall. Yet the steps in the floor were carpeted, and someone had wired the upstairs for cable and telephone. We don't get cable out here, so why someone would do that, I don't know. One of the drywall panels had a drawing from a children's book from the 1960s or so, I'd say, nailed to it, and it had been colored over. It wasn't anything creepy, and looked like it was from Alice in Wonderland, and the child had just filled in the lines. The original drawing was black and white. However, it was nailed to a much newer piece of drywall, 4 to 5 years old, and there had been no children in the house for much longer than that. The board also had ripped edges from other drawings on it and several children's handprints in blue and pink paint. I didn't think much of it at the time, and still don't classify it as 100% paranormal. Strangely, the attic's lights, it had several, did not work. In the crawl space in it, there were 2 that I found immediately, did not have floors, just drywall covered in carpet, which I really found fucking bizarre. This also killed me because I crawled in one and almost fell through the ceiling. The attic soon became my project, especially as winter set in and the house became drafty. I was 100% convinced at the time it was the attic. I ripped up the carpet first. The carpet did not have padding under most of it, only about half the attic, and there were unfinished hardwood floors beneath it. Under the side that didn't have padding, there were what looked like chalk lines under the carpet on the wood, but they'd gotten smeared over the years. And I assumed the same children who left me the handprints and drawing had played with chalk one day. Now, I just find that sort of unnerving. I then went about finishing the floors in the crawl space and repairing the damage I did when I almost fell through and wiring the attic properly. I didn't know it didn't have lights until I tried working up there after dark one night and the lights wouldn't come on. To do that, I removed most of the drywall, as I wanted a few plugs up there. This didn't include the board with the handprints. Now, it's worth noting that I can't smell shit. I grew up on a farm, and I've smelled blood, rot, and feces regularly since I was born. Unless an odor's truly overpowering, it just doesn't really bother me. Until I was done with the wiring, my roommate hadn't ever been up in the attic. When she went up there once, she immediately told me something smelled and tracked the odor down to a piece of drywall with the handprints/drawing. I humored her, removed it, and was unpleasantly surprised by what I found. A dead, rotting cat. It hadn't been there more than a couple months, although the attic had been sealed. No openings large enough for a cat. The only door up to it had been closed. I didn't think much of it though, and threw the cat out. After scrubbing the space, I replaced the drywall, finished the walls, and considered it a day. My bedroom is unfortunately located when you go up the stairs. If you turn up left, you come to my door within a few feet. My room's the biggest, about 40% of the upstairs living area. Unfortunately, it also has the only door to the attic in it. If you go the entire length of my room, you come to a small hall at the end. And if you turn left again, you've got my attic. It's hard to describe, really. This unnerved me a little, especially after I began hearing thumping noises above me, usually at night. At first, I assumed it was a rat or something of the sort. Come in for the winter. I'd never heard the noise before then. After it got bad one night, it sounded like something was hopping around up there and getting into the things I'd stored there. I went up there to see if I could find the little bugger's nest. I knew it wasn't the walls, as I had just recently put most of them in. I checked the floor, even ripping up one board, which looked damaged. Nothing but dust and a few marbles. I assumed the children who'd surely been up there lost them in the floor somehow. Eventually, I began checking the walls for any hollow spots after the noises got progressively louder. Eventually, I found one behind the only piece of drywall I hadn't replaced. Behind it was another crawl space, this one finished with a floor. I didn't find anything in it, nowhere for the rat or whatever to hide. However, it was abnormally cold. Despite having only one external wall, we're talking a good 20 Fahrenheit lower than my mid-40s/50s attic. It was like I'd stepped outside. I added an access, put up rat traps, and forgot about it. I never caught a rat, nor did I ever find animal droppings. The noises continued, getting louder as winter went on, until it sounded like there was a party going on upstairs. When spring came, the noises got less intense, a thump or two every night, but that was it. I got used to it, and I never mentioned it to my roommate, who apparently didn't hear the noises. She never complained about it. The crawl space, however, remained cold and unnerving. Even in the summer, the crawl space was much cooler than my air-conditioned home. It was not the only cold spot, nor the only one I had direct contact with. The second cold spot was my closet. When we first moved in, I noticed how much colder it was than the rest of the house, a good 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and that it had a light, musty smell that even I could notice. I stored boxes and records in it, and nothing else. I decided to air it out and left it open one morning, only to find it closed when I got home. After repeating the cycle 2 or 3 more times, I asked my roommate to stop closing the door. She claimed she hadn't been in the room and didn't know what I was talking about. I found it creepy, but brushed it aside. I began leaving it open at night, but found it hard to sleep. When I did finally fall asleep, I'd awake to it being closed again. I stopped trying. The third cold spot was located in the empty third bedroom and was dead center in the middle of the room. It was the least intense but very noticeable, and you'd walk across the room and feel it. We have 4 dogs and 2 cats in the house, and all the animals refused to go in that room. Despite it being bigger than my roommate's room and having a much larger closet, she didn't pick it when we moved in, instead picking the smaller room that shared a wall with my snoring ass. I think we were all bothered by that room. In mid-spring, we got another roommate, a kid I'd met online who was getting kicked out and I felt bad for. He took up the empty third bedroom, under the crawl space. Not long after that, my first roommate, F for now on, to avoid confusion with the new guy, N, got a boyfriend, T, who began to stay over more. Immediately, N began to complain about the cold spot and how it was poor installation. He also complained how his dog didn't like to be in his room and blamed that on the cold. He went out of his way, even in the summer, to make it warmer in his room. While it'd be hotter than hell in 90% of his room, if you stood in the cold spot, you'd still feel it. He also began complaining of a tapping noise in the ceiling, which he said sounded like fingers rapping on a desk, and blamed on a rat. I was glad someone else heard the invisible rat and tried in earnest to find the fucker again. We still never found it. Meanwhile, I bought 11 more acres from a neighbor directly behind my property. This was largely woods, with a small stream running through it. By now, I was trying to fence in my property so I could bring my horses. I'd bought a few over the spring, home, and let my 2 pet goats out of their stall in the barn. Our first summer in the house was in full swing. The barn was another thing of interest. When we moved in, the barn was filthy. The stalls, 5 of them, and built-in run in were filled with feces, horse, cow, muck, and trash. 2 stalls were full of horse tack, buckets, bags of trash, etc. Apparently, about a year before we moved in, the barn had been rented out to someone with 5 horses. They'd left in a hurry. We assumed back rent, and hadn't cleaned anything before they left, and had left all their tack. What we first assumed was a treasure trove of unclaimed belongings soon just became a hassle, and abnormally thick, literally an inch in some places. Layer of dust was over everything, making it so we couldn't even tell what most of it was before we cleaned it. It took so long to clean things, and so much of it was trash, that a lot of things just went into the trash. We did get some very nice bridles and a saddle out of the mess, which we thought was odd. The stalls were cleaned, and the main room was also cleaned. The main room also had the thick dust, which was actually worse. We first thought it had a dirt floor, until we discovered it was stone underneath. The stones/bricks were very old and very dirty. Some had numbers and letters carved into them. Eventually, we got 2 goats, which we kept in one of the stalls. The rest of the barn remained empty, and as I said before, there was no fencing. While working on the fencing, we began to notice our progress was being hindered. We'd put in 24 poles a day, woke up the next morning, and a quarter of them would be knocked over, laying sometimes feet away from the holes. We assumed it was just pranksters and went on regardless. Soon, we had the actual wire up. It was then that we realized whatever was destroying the fence was a determined motherfucker. We'd come out one morning and entire sections of wire would be broken, meaning we'd have to redo hours of work. It was then that T, my main helper for the fence, said roughly the following. Probably not an exact quote, but it goes as follows. "It's gotta be kids. It's not like deer are doing this. I've never even seen a fucking deer out here." I realized then that I'd never seen any wildlife out there either. Nothing big anyway. Our neighbors' lawns were full of deer, and we'd occasionally see one in the back acres, especially around the stream, but never anything around the barn, house, or in the fields. Not just deer either. Birds, raccoons, even dogs. Nothing ever came around. Eventually, we got the fencing up, bought the horses home, and life was normal for a while, and began acting oddly. Although he'd always been the lonely neckbeard type, this coming from a man who actually sports a neckbeard, he stopped coming out of his room, aside from using the bathroom and occasionally eating, and refused to go outside. Because of this, he stopped paying his share of the bills and his rent as he quickly ran out of money. It soon became so bad that he didn't even leave his room to walk his dog, or even let it outside. We didn't realize this until it began peeing everywhere, and he began blaming us, mostly our dogs, but he once accused T of urinating in the hall. And after a while, he was no longer talking to us. By then, F and I were both planning on kicking him out, but didn't exactly know how to word it to him, and I felt bad, as I knew he had nowhere to go. I was at work one day when I got a call from a very upset F. Apparently, she'd been showering, and upon leaving the bathroom with just a towel on, we all got used to N basically not being there and acted like he wasn't most of the time, found N right outside of the bathroom door, just staring at it. He wouldn't move to let her by, and she actually had to push him out of the way. She figured he was just being an ass, went to her room, got dressed, and went to tell him off, only to find him standing outside her bedroom door that time. He wouldn't speak to her or move again, and she was a bit worried he was up to something. She wanted me to come home. I did and asked him why he'd done that. He refused to speak, but did message me over MSN and basically told me he hadn't done it. I believe F, as she's never lied about shit like that before, and that I was an awful person because I lived in the country and had bad internet and didn't walk his dog for him. I gave him a week's notice to get out then and there. He left exactly a week later without saying anything and took all our pillowcases when he left. That really fucking ruffled my jimmies, but not as much as his room did. Oh, when I saw his room, my jimmies were as ruffled as they could get. His room was full of trash, literally piles of it. He'd also began to urinate in bottles and had snooked off onto the walls. No, I'm not kidding. We were in the process of cleaning it when we were actually attacked by an iguana that he'd brought into the house at some point and never told us about, which had been hiding under his bed. None of us ever heard from N after that, so I don't know what came of him. His room remained empty for over a year. It was about then that the actual weird shit began happening. I'd come home to find things in my room rearranged. Pencils would be taken out of my desk drawers and arranged in neat little squares. My keyboard would be stacked on top of my hard drive, which my speakers on top of it. My books would be taken out of my shelves and stacked into pyramids. This would happen if I'd left and no one else had come home while I was gone. Sometimes it'd happen when I left to go to the bathroom and came right back to my room. It began happening to F and T, who soon moved in completely, as well, although to a lesser extent. Dust began returning in the barn, without any real source. We'd clean things one night, come back in the morning, only to find a thick layer of dust on everything, more than one could explain away from bedding or dirt. We don't live in a dry area, by the way. The creepiest thing to happen to me thus far came in the early fall. I built a small shed to store my tools in by the house and went out one morning, well, about 11 p.m., to find T digging through the shed. T and F both go to college, and he shouldn't have been home at the time. I asked him what he was doing, and he replied that he needed something and kept going through the things. I noticed him leave with a pair of garden shears and a pickaxe a few minutes later and thought nothing of it, other than he was probably high. I didn't see him for the rest of the day until he came back from class with F. He told me he'd been at class all day long, and the reason his car hadn't moved was thanks to carpooling. One could argue he'd lied and snuck off at some point, but it really freaked me out. There's no chance in hell the guy I saw run off with my shears and pickaxe was not him. And if it wasn't, he's got an identical twin out there somewhere. I didn't see either tool again for months. Midwinter, I went out to find my shears wedged between two of the front porch boards, just hanging out. The pickaxe has yet to be found. No, I don't know what they were used for. My shears were in clean, oiled condition when they reappeared, and didn't look any different than when I'd first seen them. I never noticed any holes or trimmed bushes on my property. Not long after, we began stocking up on hay for our horses over the winter. This was before the shears reappeared. We never used our hayloft before, as we'd only had about 20 bales of hay at the time, which we stacked downstairs. We were busily putting hay up there with the help of some redneck friends when F, who'd been up in the loft stacking hay, fell out one of the portholes on the side of the barn. She ended up with a badly sprung wrist and is probably lucky that's all that happened. We assumed she tripped or slid, but she was horribly angry when she got down there because she thought one of us had pushed her. Only one of my friends had been up there, and we, myself and my other friend, could both see him at the time she fell, and he was nowhere near her. To this day, she insists someone pushed her. It's worth noting that the stacking/rearranging of items was still going on at this time, and had moved on to fruit and other small items downstairs in the dining room and kitchen. We'd also begun finding stray marbles around the house. Winter hit, and it hit hard. When we got the first snow, we got a few inches of it, and caring for the horses became more of a hassle, with blanketing and such. I kept 2 chickens at the time, who had free range of my barn during the day. One evening, I went to put everyone up, and the chickens were both gone. I searched everywhere for them, and never found their bodies, blood, footprints of them, or any other animal, or even a feather. I still have not found them. By the time I got back from searching the nearby area, it was already dark out. It hadn't been when I left, so the lights in the barn had been off when I left. Now, however, they were on. I first thought that F or T had come out and turned them all on, but there was no footprints other than mine and my dog's, and I didn't see their cars in the driveway. I figured I'd done goofed, and went about my routine of putting food in stalls, cleaning up last night's shit, and filling water buckets. Now I've got a draft horse. He's big, he's fat, and you don't fuck with his feeding routine. He'll literally tear apart a barn if he doesn't get his food, and he's never late for a meal. Hell, most of my horses aren't. Not one horse was at the run-in, waiting to be led into their stalls. The goats who'd been given their food were nervous and not eating. I was worried at that point that someone had been messing around the barn and possibly stolen the chickens and maybe done something with the horses. I grabbed a ledge rope, went out into the dark and snow-covered pasture, and began calling for horses. Still, no one came. Hell, my dog hadn't even followed me out into the pasture and was staying in the barn this time. I felt very alone all of a sudden, but as if someone or something were watching me. I trudged on, jumpy but determined, and eventually found 5 very jumpy and upset horses in the back corner of the pasture. None of them wanted to come to the barn, and I literally had to drag one back. The draft horse went into his stall, only to practically run me over trying to get out a second later, and had to be pushed and prodded back into his stall. By the time everyone was up, 2 hours had gone by, and I was pretty jumpy myself. I remember seeing shapes at the edge of my limited vision. Shit gets dark in the country, and at some point, you just see shapes in the distance. But these could have been my imagination or deer. I was happy to get inside anyway. The next night, F went out with me to feed the horses. They were jumpy, but less so than the night before, although I felt like I was being watched and couldn't wait to go back to the house. F later told me that it felt thin out there that night. When she explained further, she said she thought the lines between realms were thin. She's a bit of a paranormal freak, but I can't say I didn't feel it too. Not long after, my pet goat Wally began to choke on his food. He stopped being able to eat properly, and we called a vet. The vet told us he was healthy from what we could tell, and everything checked out. I tried lots of things, from massaging his neck to patting his back while he ate, but he got no better and began to get thin. Eventually, he died. I don't know if it's related or not, but his rather sudden, it all happened in about 2 weeks, death, and how the vet couldn't explain it, bothered me. I bought a few more goats to keep my other fellow company, and forgot about it. until one of my other goats died from strangely similar symptoms a month later. I became incredibly paranoid, fearing they'd all caught some sort of horrible goat disease. Fortunately, no one else died, and the best I can explain was the dust got to them. We built a new barn in the spring. This is the third winter here, so I was probably wrong about my earlier estimate of 2 years. It's been a long day. 3 makes more sense when I honestly think about it, and suffered no more deaths, as said before. The horses also began to perk up, acting less skittish in general. We no longer used the other barn. When I last went in there, the dust was back to an inch thick. We don't even store things in there, and our new barn does not have these problems. Unlike the winter before, things didn't get better with spring. New noises began popping up, including a loud hum from the pipes. A toy plane positioned atop some shelves flew off the shelves and hit me in the face when I was on the computer. The stacking intensified until it was no longer 1 to 2 stacks a day, but 3 to 4 a day. We began to admit we had a problem. By the end of spring, F and T were fighting like cats and dogs, and T eventually left. I came home one evening to find all the upstairs windows open. I was the first to come home, and nothing had been stolen. We found a marble in the garbage disposal, but not until I've been running it. We had to buy a new one. F is Jewish. I'm not religious. She suggested we get someone to bless the house, and eventually convinced her rabbi to do it. He did it, and things got better for a while. He did an entire ceremony, and the house stopped being stuffy and intimidating, like it had grown to be. The noises stopped for the most part, marbles stopped popping up, and we got only a few stacks a week. The old barn remained odd, especially at night, and occasionally we'd have to go in there to turn off the lights or close doors that had turned on themselves. We went trail riding that summer on the property, only for both our horses to spook at nothing by the stream, dump us, and run off to hide in the barn. We seriously don't know what they spooked at, and we still can't get them to go near that stream. No, it isn't water. They're fine with water, if it isn't that stream. Sorry for being slow. I didn't expect anyone to read this far down. Other than a few oddities, things were better. My sister visited me for the first time at my house. We met in town once when she drove up there, but I didn't really want her knowing where my house was, and remarked that the house, quote, creeped her out. My girlfriend at the time said the same thing when she first saw the house. But like I said, things were a lot better. This winter, things have gotten bad again. It started in late November and just got worse. The noises returned in the attic, accompanied by new ones. I went to bed one night and began hearing classical music. I asked F to turn it off, and she said it wasn't her music. It stopped a few minutes later. We sometimes hear a click in the basement. F got a new boyfriend a few months back, who we'll call L. He claims something watches him from the attic, although he only first claimed this a week or 2 ago. F's reluctant to go upstairs, and I come home to find her sleeping on the couch sometimes. Money's tight, so we got another roommate, the first one we've had since N. They took the spare bedroom, which we kept empty, aside from furniture, and left, and told me yesterday, after only a month here, that they couldn't stay anymore and had to go. They just didn't feel comfortable here. The stacks are worse again too. I woke up this morning with the attic key in the door and the door unlocked. I always lock it when I'm done going up there, so it doesn't pop open and a dog doesn't go up there. I never leave the key in the door. I decided to try and figure out what happened and called the woman I bought the house from to talk to her. I didn't tell her we had been having any problems, and she hasn't been to the house in over a year, so she doesn't really know what's been happening. I just told her I wanted to know the history. She told me she was glad I liked the house so much because she hadn't wanted to tell me quite everything when I bought the place. Apparently, she rented it out in the 80s. She's owned it since the mid-70s and only lived in it for a few years then. She lived in it again in the 90s and rented it out in the 2000s. And her tenant ended up committing S-word by hanging in the house, in my fucking closet. There's an exposed beam in the ceiling, so I guess that's as good of a place as any. She said it like it was a joke. I don't think that's the only thing that has happened here. I don't think that explains why the barn's got so many problems or why the attic does. F's leaving, moving in with L. Says she can't handle living here. I'm tempted to agree with her and have begun looking for a new place. It's just too stressful living here. No, we didn't have some big event happen. No, we didn't have skeletons or ghosts pop out and R-word us. And Slenderman isn't haunting us. We're just tired of it. My TV randomly turns itself off at night, only to turn back on and wake me up on different channels. My window's open. It's always drafty and cold. It's 1,000 little things. No rattling chains or screaming banshees. It's just uncomfortable here. F's packing up, but says she won't leave until I've got a place to go. The new roommate, we'll call him A, plans on leaving Tuesday. I'm considering taking a job down in Kentucky, and I'm driving down there to look at a house Monday. It's new construction, and I think all my houses from now on will be. Congrats to those who finished it. Yeah, I know, it's long and boring and lacks a good end. I just thought you guys may like to read it. If you have any questions, I'll stay up and answer them. I'm not sleeping tonight anyway. Thumping's too loud. Oh, and did I mention the attic lights went out over the fall? I've tried fixing them 3 times, but they won't work anymore. And nothing I do, or the professional electrician we hired did, fixes them. And then some people start asking some questions. Someone says, have you tried leaving a sound recorder on in the paranormal hotspots overnight? I mean, if you really do have all these problems, why not just rent out another place and open this one up as like a haunted hotel tourist trap kind of thing? Just an idea. And then the OP says, oh, and to clarify one more thing, I'm in the process of selling the place. I got a real loan back in 2009, and I've got about $40K paid off on the place, $10K down payment plus about $20K in payments, plus a $10K present F's rich Jewish dad gave me. I've got 2 interested parties who like it for the 33 acres, 2 barns and historical house. If they don't go through, I'll kind of give myself out to my parents to get the other house and try and lease this until I can sell it. And then someone else says, OP, I'd suggest fucking with the ghost. Show the bitch you mean business. Burn down the old barn, like straight up torch it. Don't call for insurance or anything. Just be like, hey, motherfucker, I bought this house and I plan on staying here. If you keep effing with me though, I'll burn down your favorite places. Also, the next few nights after that, sleep in a motel. The ghost will probably be pissed. I checked local historical register for something happening in that house in 1933. It is long known that CAPTCHA is prophetic. Someone else says, great. This makes me kind of nervous to move into my new home. My fiance and I just bought a home a few states away. It's an old Victorian and a fixer-upper. I mean, a real fixer-upper. It was a good story, had me intrigued. Also, despite there not being any real big ending, it was good. Thanks for keeping me entertained while I wait to go to bed. And then the OP starts to answer some of these questions, saying, hopefully there won't be a next time. This isn't fake, although I understand if you think it is. He also replies to another comment saying, I really want to cut ties with it and get the fuck out of here. If I'm stuck with it, I might try that, just so it doesn't get taken back. I don't want to fuck up my credit because of fucking ghosts. I'm honestly afraid to leave a tape recorder out. Although L suggested it before, I'm afraid something will be telling us to go die in a fire on it. He also says, I don't plan on putting any more money in this house, and I'm saving up right now to get into the next place. The best I could do is leave my webcam on during the day while I'm gone, and it's so grainy, you'd probably never see anything in it. He also says, I might try it in the morning, but I don't want to listen to it. F and L can if they want, but I don't want to. I'm too much of a chicken shit. I'd do it right this minute, but if I have a tape recorder, it's in the attic. And then the OP finally says, Good night and good luck, and finally comments, if I can't sell the place and have to stay here, I might try that. I don't honestly know where one finds a Catholic priest or how F got the rabbi here. Do I just go into a church and ask for ghost help? And that's the last we have ever heard from the OP on this story, but you guys might be going, oh, well, that was a boring story. And I kind of understand that, but once again, this is true 4chan's threads, and I tried to pick some true stories, and to me, this seemed true, because a lot of true stories are often not that climatic. They don't have a crazy ending. But I think the ending there was disturbing. I mean, he called the old homeowner, and she's like, someone committed S-word in here, and it's in your closet. I mean, just think about that for a second. Imagine you lived in a house, all this crazy shit's happening, and there's cold spots in your house, and you can't explain it, and there's knocking, and there's tapping, and all this stuff, and you call the old homeowner, and she says someone committed S-word in your closet, and you never knew. And there's always weird shit happening with the closet. I mean, that is just so scary to me, and this just feels like a true story, because a lot of the fake stories, they just go for it, and they go on a crazy ramble, giving all these crazy details that just don't seem realistic. But this one just seems eerie, and like the OP said, unnerving. And I mean, it was unexplainable. Who knows what it was? And so that's the title of this video. But I hope you enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed this one. And yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. And just a quick preface before we get into this next story. This story is a lot different than usual. It is not your average scary story I read, and it's a slow burner, but it is so worth the listen. At first, you'll be caught off guard. I do agree the details and the descriptions of some things are a little bit odd, but the story just blew my mind. It is often labeled as one of the greatest green texts of all time, so you'll want to stick around. And without further ado, let's get into The Ballad of Ella. This is my story, B. Be me, 19-year-old college freshman. This was 10 years ago. I had this bro from high school, Pete. We were friends, but not exactly bros. He was a cool guy, and I think I was cool to him. Turns out we applied to the same college and enrolled, going to the same classes, practically spending all of our time together. Away from you, family, with your high school life behind you, things can get hectic. Yeah, you are teenagers with no real problems to deal with, but you still need a friend you can depend on. And we were that friends to each other. Fast forward a couple of months, second semester, we start taking this new class, and there is this girl in the class. Not just us, but every human being with a working PP in the entire campus is losing their shit over her. Ordinary straight girls are ready to become lesbians just for her. I mean, man, wow, what an angel, a beam of light? Du a machina descending from heaven? I have no fucking idea. A value over 10 is a measurement that applies to us, mere mortals. Her beauty cannot be calculated or properly abstracted with numbers. And looking at her is like something you know you shouldn't do. Not because it's creepy or socially awkward or some other shit. It's because you feel like you're not worthy. Not for her, you're not. No, not her. But we were looking. Turns out we first saw her practically at the same time. And we wanted to point her to one another. But we couldn't take our eyes off of her. So we sat in some lousy economy class or whatever and drooled over her for half an hour. Before I whispered, dude, fuck me. And it took Pete a solid 5 minutes before he could simply say, yeah. There she was, this 5'9" lady with long, wavy auburn hair and emerald green eyes to die for, and pretty sure to kill for, sitting just a couple feet away from us. Yeah, so, fuck me, was the correct response in that situation. Pick is unrelated random chick. After the class, to this day, I can't remember for the life of me what the fuck it was about. We were already orbiting her like some lousy asteroids stuck to a massive black hole, creepily getting closer and closer to her as she sucked us in, bumping to each other and walking like we were drunk and out of our minds. I don't know what it was. Maybe she realized that we were following her like pervs, or maybe it was something else. Halfway to the cafeteria, She just stopped and turned towards us. We immediately bumped into each other and stopped as well. But her beauty was so miraculous, we forgot to look somewhere else. I remember her gaze. It was like the back of her head blew open and brains splattered all over the hallway. Those green eyes, man. And she smiled. She fucking smiled. If we weren't healthy, fit males in their prime, we would have died of a heart attack at that moment. We couldn't breathe. She was so beautiful. So there we were, still staring at her, our eyes and mouths wide open. We were in our low, way low 2-digit IQs at that moment. And there she was, in all of her glory. Like I said, 5'9", long wavy auburn hair, emerald green eyes. Long, curvy, and athletic legs, slimmer at the knees. Well-defined muscles on her calves and soft but rigid thighs. Her ankles were so elegant, but her tendons were sprained, as if she were a wild gazelle ready to bolt out at a moment's notice. Her butt, I can't call it an ass, not hers. Ass is what girls have. This lady had something else. She had buttocks that required a new definition of the word. They were so firm and so well shaped, you could perfectly calculate for pi if you took the measurement. Her breasts, I don't even have the words. To this day, I'm still searching for the right words, and I will try and describe them later in the story, but I will fail terribly. I can still remember what she was wearing that day. I know what she was wearing probably better than her on the day she wore them. And I know this because Pete knew this. After she looked at us and smiled, just for a few seconds, which felt like an eternity, she turned around again and kept on walking. We just stayed put. We couldn't follow her. Our black hole left us lonely asteroids to the pitch black emptiness of cold space. So after the school, we went to our dorm room with no information about her whatsoever. No name, no nothing. Just a mental image of her elegant stance etched deep into our minds. I was looking at the picture of random women with green eyes and auburn hair on Yahoo. That was the only thing I could do. But none of the images even came close to matching her beauty. Well, Pete felt like he had to do something. And he fucking started searching for her clothes. I shit you not. He was searching for her clothes on Amazon and eBay and all these fashion and shopping sites neither of us knew nothing about. He started with searching for her skirt, which was this black wool cashmere circle skirt with a playful flare at the bottom, couple inches above her knee, revealing her thighs just a little bit. When he found it, he shouted, "I found it, fuck yeah." And I thought he had found her. But when I saw what he found, which was this, I don't know what brand skirt on Amazon, I was far from being disappointed. I was feeling the same way. We didn't know her name, but fuck if we didn't know what skirt she was wearing. Pete kept going with the search and I helped him. At the end of the night, we knew what flat she was wearing, what shirt. We even knew what brand her red bow-shaped hair clip was. I mean, look, we are straight guys. I figure I'm a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8. Pete is an easy 8 out of 10, pushing 9. We were both fit. We don't have ugly pimples on our faces or anything. We were both very decent. We were not short, chubby. And also, we were not the most popular kids in high school. We were definitely not social cast-outs either. But that night, we were more gay than a male fashion design student wearing pink Donna Grays and coming out of the closet singing YMCA. And we knew what skirt she was wearing, so yeah. And before we went to sleep, Pete had an idea. That motherfucker had the most excellent idea. He knew he needed an extra something if he was ever going to talk to her, let alone date her. So he decided he should start learning about fashion and use his knowledge as a conversation starter. Meanwhile, I was feeling like I could go to Mars with a new Apollo mission, or save the world from a new regime all by myself, and still wouldn't be able to impress her. I was a hopeless F-slur. Next morning, the first thing Pete did was to enroll in a class on fashion design. Pete didn't know if this tactic was even going to work. Pete didn't know if this magnificent creature would speak fashion with him. But he had hopes. Meanwhile, we were both unable to speak to her. We were a bunch of beta F-slurs, scared out of our minds. But we learned her name from a friend. Ella. Ella was her name. Pete didn't want to waste his chances in leaving a perfect first impression with Ella. Well, the first impression both of us have left with us standing in the middle of the hallway, staring at her like we were a bunch of R-worded perverts. But speaking to her was a different matter altogether. I figured if Pete had no chance of talking to her now, how could I? Besides, Pete was so into zone. I didn't want to compete. Not that I could, or so I believed. Fast forward a couple of weeks. Pete, as a freshman, knew more about fashion than seniors knew about economy in our department. He was spending his nights browsing fashion blogs. Every night, he would come to our room with a list of items she was wearing that day, studying her taste in fashion. Pete told me that this could actually work, since while a lot of the girls on campus dressed like trailer trashes, Ella was always amazing in her choice of clothes. Our room was filled with editions of Vogue and GQ and shit. A couple of friends have seen our stash of fashion magazines and joked about it. So we made a lousy explanation of how they were quality snooking it material and got away with it. One day, Pete woke up and turned to me. "I'm ready," he said. Like Neo saying, "I know Kung Fu." I said, "Show her." Anyways, Pete decided that whatever she's wearing that day, he felt like he could intelligently talk to her about her clothes. After the economy class, I wished him luck, and we parted ways. An hour later, he found me. I asked him, "How did it go?" I don't know, man. I really don't know. I mean, I might as well have done great or fucked it up completely." "Why?" "Look, we talked about fashion for an hour." "So you talked for an hour? That's great, man." Damn, we were beta F slurs. "Yeah, but what if she thinks I'm gay?" I started laughing. Pete had a point. Straight guys don't usually talk about fashion. Certainly not about women's fashion. Suddenly, Ella comes out of nowhere. I froze. Pete looked at me and understood that Ella was coming our way. "Hey, Pete." And I heard Ella's voice for the first time. She had a crackly, deep voice. Kind of reminds me of Scarlett Johansson now. A lot of people don't think that kind of voice is flattering, but if you found me a soprano that sings Agnus Dei, I would have told you, shut that woman up and let Ella sing. "Hey, Ella," said Pete, his heart probably skipping a couple of beats. I remembered now. I got it from Anthropology. I have absolutely no idea what she's talking about. "Oh, thanks." "Don't mention it. It's from last season, though. I don't think you could buy it for your sister, but they might have something similar." "Oh, well, thank you for telling me, Ella." "You're welcome. See you around, Pete." "See you, Ella." And we watched Ella walking away from us gracefully until she disappeared in the distance, still looking at her general direction as if we could still see her. "Dude, your sister is 7. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know she is." "Yeah, I know. Magnificent." A week later, Pete had another idea. In order to not look like a gay couple, he suggested that we develop this manly handshake and establish that we are in fact bros. Like a bunch of idiots, we stayed up all night, working out this complex yet subtle, or so we thought, secret handshake. Our stupidity was at an immeasurable new height. Pete was chatting up Ella little by little every day, but he was afraid of becoming a gay BFF and lose all chance of dating her. So he requested me to approach them tomorrow at some point mid-conversation and apply the handshake. Okay then. After our economy class, I gave Pete some time, then joined them in the cafeteria. As I approached them, Pete saw me coming, excused himself like a true boss gentleman, and we started acting out this ridiculous handshake in unison. I mean, it was absolute bullshit. Hands and fingers everywhere, clicking and fist bumping and doing other various stuff. It was like the douchebag version of Cirque du Soleil. Halfway through, yeah, it was that long it almost needed an interlude, Ella starts laughing her ass off. She was laughing like a crazy person. We freeze. The blood drains away from Pete's face. Pale as fuck. We realize that we just fucked up. We fucked up immensely, and we force ourselves to turn and face Ella. She's trying to silence herself, still laughing. Pete and I still holding hands like idiots. She tries to apologize for laughing, but then she starts laughing even louder. We look around and hope that no one other person has acknowledged how dumb we look. Fortunately, no one other than Ella is laughing, but Ella is still laughing. Pete has this is how we die face. I'm all good. Ella's laughter finally dies down, and we're looking at her like rabbits caught in headlights. Guys, I know you're not gay. And she starts laughing again. Pete looks like he's about to shit his pants. And I don't know what it was. Maybe I started losing my nerve. Or maybe it was like a chain reaction to Ella's laughter. I start laughing my ass off as well. That manly handshake started playing out in my head over and over again. And I began to imagine myself doing the handshake, and I realized how absolutely idiotic it must have looked like. Pete starts laughing as well. All three of us are crying at this point. Now people are looking at us like, what the fuck? And that's how I met Ella. We finally sit down. I'm still chuckling like an ape. I extend my hand towards Ella. Hi, I'm Anon. She firmly grabs my hand. My God, her hands are beautiful. Long, slender fingers embrace my hairy man paws like the branches of a delicate flower. She has a very cold touch. Almost freezing, but at the same time, it's such an awakening feeling. I can feel the hairs on my forearm rising. Hi, Anon. I'm Ella. She responds with a warm smile and an incredibly sharp, piercing gaze. Her spellbinding eyes are filled with both an I got you now attitude and an older sister's love I melt. For how long have you guys practiced that stupid handshake, she asks. We start blushing like 5-year-old kids. All night, Pete answers as silently as possible. Ella claps her hands and pops a loud chuckle. I knew it, waving her fingers towards us. You guys are insecure. Pete grumbles. Oh, it's so cute. She puts on a funny face, pouting her spectacular pink lips. I'm losing my grasp on English language right now. Well, guys, I know you're not gay, but you're definitely homophobic. Well, we're not. I try to defend myself futilely. Oh, it's okay, Anon, she smiles. I can understand that feeling. Pete must be losing his mind. He just sits there, trying to find a way to regain his composure. Oh, come on, Pete. I know you feel uneasy talking to me about fashion. Pete looks shocked. He doesn't understand how he could be sidelined so bad. But he tries to make a case, which I assume he has none. It's really okay, Pete. I can sense that you have been working on fashion, makes a finger quote, for some time. Oh, fuck. Our jaws are sweeping the floor. How? Pete mumbles. Seriously, I know about your fashion class in your room full of fashion magazines. Ella winks at Pete. I'm about to lose my shit. Pete looks like he's been shot by Cupid's 50 cal machine gun. He's crushing hard, madly in love. How did you know? I ask, since Pete cannot come to the phone right now. Well, first of all, I have a friend in Pete's fashion class, and also some of your chums were talking about your stash and I overheard them. Pete silently mouths, fuck me. But most of all, Pete, I can see that you are new to the fashion world. Where did I go wrong? Pete must have been losing his hope at this point. Well, a fashionista, how can I put it, must look more fashionable, don't you think? Ella was right. Granted, Pete didn't walk around wearing shitty flip-flops and baggy sweatpants, but he wasn't actually a fashion icon either. Pete looks like he's about to burst into tears. Besides, your fashion sense has no context. A person who is deeply involved in any subject always speaks in some form of context. As Ella talks about Pete's failure, I feel both incredibly sad and incredibly turned on. Maybe I'm not from a family or a place where there were a lot of smart women around, and maybe I was just a dumb homophobic or maybe even sexist fuck. Who thinks all women learn about everything in life by furiously banging Ken and Barbie dolls into each other in their childhood? But I'll be damned if this magnificent woman isn't smart. Hey, it's okay, Pete. Ella sees Pete cringing like a puckered behind. I know why you did it. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Pete lines up like someone stuck a needle full of adrenaline into his chest. Meanwhile, I'm lost in Ella's eyes, studying her beautiful face as she talks. So I'm gonna give you a chance. Go ahead. Ask. Ask what? Pete shits the bed. Ella tilts her head and gives him a really face. Pete comes around again. Gains his composure like a champ for the first time during the conversation. Well, do Do you want to grab a cup of coffee with me after school? Ella smiles at him and playfully nods with her eyes closed. I would love that, Pete. And she chuckles. And I sit there like a F-slur thinking of asking, can I come too? Ella is beyond words to me. I feel stupid and powerless near her. Thank you. Pete barely makes any sense. I can't imagine being in his place right now. Getting the green light from Ella after believing that he fucked up so badly. Ella laughs playfully and changes the subject. So we sat there and talked about our lives and how we knew each other for an hour. And I was able to get to know Ella, even if it was just for a little bit. But it was an amazing experience. A couple of weeks later, Pete and Ella were a couple. I've never seen Pete so happy. He was over the clouds all the time. The guy was out of his mind, counting seconds for their next date every time he kissed Ella goodbye. And I was happy for my bro. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel uneasy every time I saw Ella. Ella was still the most amazing woman I've ever seen in my life. Nothing came remotely close to matching her beauty, not to mention her wits. And speaking to her was more fun than I could have ever had, doing anything. And I was trying extremely hard not to fall for her. I owed it to my bro and to myself. Fortunately, Ella came to my help. She introduced her friend Nicole to me. Nicole was the girl in Pete's fashion class, the girl Ella was talking about. Nicole was an incredibly beautiful girl. She was this amazing redhead, 5'6", big soft breasts, nice curvy body, pale blue eyes, cute little freckles on her face. You would think that a beautiful girl like Ella wouldn't be BFFs with another beauty like Nicole. 9 out of 10 times, you'd be right, but Ella had no competition. She was beyond competition. Ella could have been friends with the biggest bimbo there ever was, or she could have been hanging around with a fucking Swedish bikini team. She could have been sleepwalking in her PJs on a Victoria's Secret catwalk at a New Year's show for all I care. No matter the situation, Ella was always the one you looked at first. But yeah, Nicola was a bombshell too, and she was something else entirely. The four of us started hanging out together, started going to parties, hanging out after school, going to the movies, and slowly Nicole and I got very close. She had an amazing sense of humor, knew a lot about subcultures and shit. Finally, after a night out together, Pete and Ella decided to go to Ella's room by themselves. Turns out Ella's roommate was back at home for a family emergency or something like that, and Nicole and I kissed. Soon after, we officially became a couple. After what felt like an eternity, I wasn't interested in Ella that much. It felt good, not feeling like cheating on my bro. And Nicole was amazing in bed. In all things related to intimacy, she was a dream come true. The fantasies she was into were mind-boggling. The things she wore, stockings, blah, 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 surprised me with wake up, blah, blah, blah. I'm just not going to get into that. Some nights I would think, how the fuck am I supposed to regain my appetite after this? A couple hours later, there she was again, wearing something really good looking, doing things you would lose your mind for, the places we had intimacy, and the positions we tried were pure. Yeah, this gets pretty graphic. I'm going to skip a lot of this. It felt like half of my daily diet was being used for snooking it juice. I'm going to regret saying that. She wouldn't use protection. No, sir. Where's the fun in that, she says. And she would always want more and more. Good thing I was fit and young. You can't do some of the things she asked for when you're 29. I would do things, and I couldn't feel my tongue. The girl was a queen. There was no stopping until she said enough. Wow, this goes on and on. I was scared shitless if there would come a time when I'm simply not enough, but she was loyal and honest as fuck. Never even flirted with the other guys, let alone cheat on me. I was really skeptical at first. It's a complete opposite of what you would expect. I somehow raised the issue with a delicate, yes, curious manner. I was treading lightly. Didn't want to offend her. You're mine, Anon, and I'm yours, she told me. Nothing will change that until such a time comes that we both decide otherwise, she would furiously declare. If there ever was a woman made out of a wife material, Nicole was the ultimate prototype. Her understanding of a relationship was beyond belief, and her connection to me was unbreakable. She was so incorruptible. She would straight up hit the guys trying to chat her up in her faces. You come near me again, and I swear to God, I will use my entire boyfriend like a retractable baton and fuck you in the ass with him. That's an actual fucking quote I heard her shout at some poor kid. Holy shit. And there I was, standing like a beta F-slur who just won the lottery. My diamond, hard, whatever, pulsating to her commanding voice. Jesus. Then she kisses me like there's no tomorrow, finds an empty room in a house full of partying people, hangs my sock on the doorknob, and does her thing. Yeah, that was Nicole in a nutshell. So I've never imagined there would be trouble at the Paradise, but come summertime, something else happened. My dad asked one of his old friends in LA for an internship position on my behalf. His friend accepted me to his firm, and while everyone was having a great time, I was supposed to work at the accounting department of this design office in LA. This meant that I wasn't going to spend my summer satisfying Nicole, or doing anything fun for that matter. Before she went to the airport, Nicole kissed me as if we weren't going to see each other again, like ever. You don't forget who you belong to, mister, she told me with tearful eyes. I won't, Nicole. I promise. Man, the love and care this girl had shown me was something else. Even though I told her numerous times that I loved her, and I meant it, I had this feeling that my love for her didn't even come close to what she felt towards me. You take care of yourself, you hear? And she left, hesitantly walking backwards to her bus to the airport. Pete had already gone home previous weekend, so I was all by myself, walking around in this college ghost town, on my way back to the dorm, wanting to pack my stuff ASAP and get ready to my flight to LA. And there she was, walking towards me. Ella. Hey, sup, Anon? She greeted me with a warm smile. Hey, Ella, I just sent off Nicole. Ah, you guys, she cried, right? With a snappy laugh. I know she cried. Ha, well, you know her, right? She loves you, Anon, that's why. Ella reached out and stroked my arm, showing that she cared. For the first time in quite a while, I suddenly felt a jolt, a rush. It was like the time when I first saw her up close. As her cold hands brushed my skin, my pupils dilated, like the first sip of a morning coffee. A surge of a small dose of adrenaline hit my body. I quickly broke out of her spell. I had to. So, where are you off to, Ella? Oh, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Off to see my parents in LA. What? We might be on the same flight. That was the most S-word neutral thing I could think of at that time. You serious? What are you doing in LA? Ella asked with a delighted curiosity, her big green eyes glimmering with excitement. I have this job my dad arranged for me. I'm not exactly going there for a vacation, I pout. Ah, don't worry, Anon. I'll keep you company. It will be fine, I promise. Cheerfully reassuring me. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could say anything. Oh, look at the time. I gotta go now, but hey, see you in LA. If not earlier. She winked at me. She waved and started walking in the other direction. After mumbling some non-intelligible verbal expressions like, hey, yeah, what? Oh, I waved at her and watched her disappear around the corner. And as I was trying to make sense of what just happened, Nicole's teary-eyed face kept coming into my mind. I felt like a complete asshole. What the fuck am I so excited about? I mean, Ella is my bro's girlfriend. She's best friends with my girlfriend. What am I thinking? Why am I suddenly feeling awkward again? I tried not to think about it and started walking away. The next morning was even harder for me. We were on the same bus to the airport, and when it was time to check in for our flight, we were side by side. Naturally, you can't ask to be seated elsewhere when the person you're trying to avoid is right next to you. I couldn't believe that I was thinking about being seated elsewhere too. Ella was not only a friend, she was the only person I had to think of almost as a sister. I kept texting Nicole to make sure that I was okay, reminding myself of who I belonged to. I was scared because it wasn't helping at all, acting like everything is all right. I boarded the plane with Ella. After chatting for a bit with Ella, she fell asleep. After some time, I did too. When I woke up, her head was on my shoulder, and my head was on hers. Her fragrant hair was all over my face. She smelled of vanilla and berries. Her gorgeous scent was so enchanting. I started getting the strongest stiffy of my life. I was unsure about what to do. Do I slowly back off? Do I keep leaning against her head and savor the moment? What the fuck am I thinking? Why is this even an issue? Now, I know there must be a lot of you out there calling me a beta F slur, but if bros before hoes doesn't apply here, then where else? The only thing I was able to do was to raise my head out of her hair and sit upright as best as I could. I couldn't bring myself to pull away from her. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, she mumbled in her sleep and put her hand on my chest, embracing me as if she was sleeping next to Pete. Her beautiful hand was lightly hanging onto my shirt. Her cold fingertips gently grazing my bare chest. This is torture. Pete's voice is ringing in my ears. I love her, man. I fucking love her. The time he told me at a party, watching Ella from the other side of the room. With an admiration and love I haven't seen before on any man's face. Then I remember Nicole again. And the discernment and the loyalty she has displayed time and time again in the face of temptation. I felt like shit. Concentrated, WC clogging brick of shit. An excruciating hour later, she woke up. She blinked her eyes rapidly as she tried to sober up, and yawned and stretched. I was losing my mind to the sight of her delicate body, as every muscle on her body vibrated and contracted. I was trying to force myself to look away, not notice her, but I couldn't. She looked at me with her sleepy green eyes. Oh, sorry, Anon. I get very untidy in my sleep, she chuckled. Huh, no worries. I tried to match her chuckle nervously. Shortly after that, we landed. Her parents came to welcome her. She introduced me to them. They were nice people, really warm and welcoming. Her mom, after learning that I was going to be alone in LA, invited me to their place. I kindly declined their invitation, telling that my father has already rented an apartment for me. Well, next week, you must at least come have dinner with us then, Ella ordered. Okay then, deal. I accepted her offer with a million questions and ideas racing in my mind. Shortly after we parted ways, I called Nicole and talked to her for an hour, trying to remind myself of who I am, and texted Pete, telling him about Ella and I were on the same flight to LA. I hated myself for feeling that an explanation was necessary. Hey, Pete, don't worry, buddy. My thing down there, my pee-pee, wasn't fully erect the whole time. She was sleeping on my shoulder, sort of thing. It got hard only when she started stretching her muscles. It's aight. Fuck. I settled at home. Met people at work. It's boring, but it's okay. I'm in LA. Lots of things to do. Lots of free time when I'm not working 9 to 5. And it's only part-time, so I only work 3 days a week. A week later, Ella picks me up from work, and we go to her house like I promised. And everything went better than expected. Her parents are really cool. Lots of drinking, talking, joking around. She has a younger brother, Jake. He is 11. He is a nerd, but he is always handsome in the same way Ella is beautiful. Fucking little man is on his way to becoming a motherfucking 10 out of 10 alpha. I start talking to him. We hit it off really well. I start playing video with him in his room. Ella joins in. I'm like, what? Turns out Ella is a hardcore gamer. Then the feeling returns once more. Ella is sitting between me and Jake, and I'm trying to hide my stiffy under a N64 controller, feeling like I'm cheating on Nicole again. I start drooling as she kicks our asses in Mario Kart. Oh well. Ella rubs Jake's head, and she turns to me and winks. I don't know what you guys were expecting. I forget how to speak English as I see her smug face next to mine, her piercing green eyes, her sharp, pointy nose a couple inches away from me, her cheeks red like apples, the rush and excitement of the game, tiny drops of sweat rolling down on her delicate neck. My mouth is wide open. She starts laughing when she sees my dumb as fuck face. I only play adventure games, Monkey Island, such. I try to bail out. Oh, is that right, Mr. Thurpwood? Ella teases me. Oh, MFG, I'm about to die. Her mom calls us for dessert and coffee. I stay for another hour. Then her dad drives me back to my place. Next week, she called me and asked if I want to hang out. I was afraid of how fast I responded yes. She showed me the sights. We went to her favorite place, eating ice cream, hanging out in cafes and shit. About a month and a half into my stay in LA, I met a couple of her old friends. I could easily see that some of her high school boyfriends were still in her love with her, losing their minds over how lucky they are to see her once again. Some of them even eyeballed me before Ella told them that I was just a friend. Just a friend, she said. And for no reason at all, I felt as if my heart imploded. What's wrong with what she said? Yeah, of course, I was just a friend. It wasn't like I was friend-zoned or anything. She had a boyfriend. I had a girlfriend. So I was just a friend. But I was heartbroken nonetheless. We decided to go to the beach the next week. So next week, 5 of Elle's friends and I were at the beach. 9 out of 10, 10 out of girls with thongs all around us. Everyone is like, who gives a shit? I was the only fuck checking out every piece of ass around us. Ella was wearing those loose summer pants and an old XL white shirt. We find a nice spot, get settled. Then Ella starts getting undressed for the beach. And every person within a 50 feet radius starts looking. 10 out of 10 girls start cringing. I can see how jealous they feel. Men are, I don't even know what word that is. Then I say, fuck it. I'll have to see her body eventually. No escape, and I look at her. Just a pair of jet black bikinis. In them, the most unquestionably beautiful woman there ever was. Her wavy auburn hair streams to her broad but willowy shoulders. Sharp sunlight is glimmering on her bright green eyes. Her face is already tanned. Reddish spots are formed over her soft cheeks, her petite pink lips, and her sharp, small diamond chin, both moisturized by tiny droplets of sweat. The elongated and tender tendons on her neckline flows to the most beautiful and deep jugular notch, surrounded by her sharp clavicles. And then I see them. And then he starts talking about her chest area. Not going to get into that. They stand at attention, he says, amused by the incompetence of frail gravity. He gets into her chest a little bit more, and he's really, really admiring her. And he says, and I admire her chest like they have seen the most beautiful work of art ever created. Then I look down, see her belly, and she's really lean and fit, and that's just the most age-appropriate, just not weird way to describe it. Like, this guy really gets into depth with all of this. Like, Jesus. And he starts to talk about her crotch area, and you can imagine where that goes. And he says she's tanned, and Jesus Christ, I'm just keep reading this and just worse and worse words. But he is really, really loving on this girl, as if you already can't tell. And then let's continue. My eyes were fixed on Ella. Ella looks at me. She leans in with a funny smile on her face. Her breasts come closer to my face than ever before. You are staring, Anon, she says calmly while giggling. My face turns into a Mexican tomato plantation. She walks by me towards the ocean, looks back with a smile warmer than midday sun. You coming? And runs into the lukewarm water while bouncing her perfect body. I'm in a minute. Yeah. I wasn't about to display the biggest tent of my life in front of everyone. She voices a snappy laugh and starts backstroking away from the beach. I sit there and start reciting the multiplication table as if I was already with Nicole in bed, trying to delay the inevitable. Moments later, I join her. Sorry about that before. I apologize sheepishly. Haha, don't worry about it. You should have seen Pete's face when he first saw me in underwear. And we're back to where we started. Good thing my tent is now underwater. I try to speak, but all I'm doing is keeping my mouth open without saying anything. Ella is laughing hysterically. Are you serious, Anon? So serious how? Are you seriously thinking of me in my underwear right now? It comes and goes. What the fuck am I saying? Ella laughs and splashes water to my face. Come on, underwear boy, swim. She starts swimming. I have nothing else to do but follow her. A few moments later, she stops swimming and turns to me. Hey, did you, call Nicole? You guys talking? Yes? Buzzkill. Yeah, why? Good, you keep doing that. Then you can imagine me in my underwear all you want. Okay. She chuckles like a prankster and starts swimming back. My mouth was like a keyboard with coffee spilled all over it. I followed her back to the beach. I spent the rest of the day thinking about Nicole, thinking about Pete, and thinking about Ella. I really didn't have to think about Ella since she was suntanning her gorgeous body next to me. Before everybody went home, Ella asked me if I wanted to hang out with her next weekend. I accepted, naturally. After I went home, my dad called, told me to get ready for a trip. What? Yeah, apparently I was supposed to go to Hong Kong. Turns out my dad is more connected than I previously believed. I had just a week left to spend in LA. Then it was time for Hong Kong. After I spoke to my dad, Pete called. His voice was all fucked up. Told me that Ella broke up with her a week ago. Oh. I switched to bro mode and started calling Ella a bitch and whatnot. Dude, stop, he said calmly. She was right. This wasn't going anywhere. How? What? Look, Anon, I have nothing that I can offer to her. Pete started explaining. He told me how Ella was smarter than him and how it wasn't about relations or intimacy or being an alpha and all that shit. Basically, like everything else about her, Ella was not exactly your usual sorority girl. She was in her own alpha omega fuck you club. And Pete had nothing more than 4 months worth of fashion class and a few dirty jokes to show for an admission. Anyways, thought you should know, man. Take care. And he hung up. I was terrified when I realized my first thought was, now what do I do with Nicole? And my next, what the fuck am I supposed to do in Hong Kong? Next week, I decided to ask Ella about what happened before we went to the museum. We meet, kiss, and hug. Sup, Anon? She's cheerful as usual. Sup, Ella? So, Pete, he called me. Her head becomes apologetically heavy. Sorry for not telling you, Anon. Didn't want you to think less of me before speaking to Pete first. Why? Ella looks at me, feeling stuck between her friendship with me and my friendship with Pete. Wasn't working, Anon. Things don't always work out. What did Pete say about me? Only good things. What did you tell him? Me? I was just trying to be a bro, I guess. Ella pouts. Sorry for putting you in that situation. This is the first time I've seen Ella unable to drive the conversation. She looks way too submissive. I feel bad. Hey, look, it's okay. It's not my place to say anything. I try to comfort her. Ella looks at me, almost waiting for my approval. Then I say, let's move on, shall we? Besides, we have a date. What? Ella blushes. I realize what I've just said and how it might have been so easily misunderstood. Okay. She doesn't push it and saves me from my own demise. We get inside the Natural History Museum and start wandering around aimlessly, without talking. Couldn't tell her that I was leaving for Hong Kong 2 days from now. Both our minds are elsewhere. We get to the prehistoric section, see the dinosaur skeletons, and no, they don't walk. Then we get to the early humans or some other stuff, I don't know. I don't remember why, but we stopped in front of this Neanderthal skull on display. We just look at it. Kind of reminds me of something. You know, this looks somewhat familiar, I say without looking at Ella. Ella doesn't say anything at first, and then she busts out laughing. She loudly cracks an evil laughter in my face of the fucking hall. She looks at me with a funny evil face, with a crackled, badly impersonated manly voice. I am a powerful demonic force. I'm the harbinger of your doom. Let me hear you scream in terror. I'm melting right now. I remember. She gives me a warm smile and starts laughing. I remember why that skull looks so familiar. She's fucking doing Murray from fucking Monkey Island 3. My life is complete. Everyone is looking at us like, WTF is wrong with these people? I get so excited my hands start shaking. Oh, I think I did it a bit too loud, she whispers as she keeps chuckling. You play MI3? I ask her, stammering. Oh, I love it, Anon. She grins. I figured you would remember Murray. You being the adventure gamer and all. I have nothing to say. At that moment, Ella stopped being a crush I could hardly admit to and turned into my life's goal I have no idea what to do with. We start talking about Monkey Island, then Full Throttle, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, all LucasArts games, old school adventures. We were cracking jokes, impersonating key characters, acting out funny moments. It got to the point of singing theme songs. That's when we realized we were sitting next to a prehistoric animal in the middle of a museum, talking about weird games and such like nerds. Security is giving us funny looks. We laughed about it and decided to leave. It was getting late. Sun was about to set. Hey, Neon, come home with me. Have dinner with us again. Ella grabbed my arm and asked me cheerfully. I'd love that. And we went to her house once more. Her parents gladly welcomed me to their home. Jake was in a summer camp or some shit. During dinner, all we could talk about was games and anime, comics, the whole nerd 9 yards. Her mom and dad were giving each other smirky looks. I didn't care. I was losing my mind. Ella, the perfect girl. Ella invited me to her room, and that was the first time I've seen Ella's room. Anime posters on the walls, cute bed sheets with girly flowers and stuff, a whole bookcase full of vidya, her neatly folded clothes everywhere, a full repertoire of fashion Pete studied to understand for a whole semester, a cute and girly elegance, and a hardcore and tomboyish geekdom. The best of both worlds, if there was ever such a thing. I'm at a loss for words, I declare with my mouth wide open. Ella chuckles and playfully punches my shoulder. Shut up. What were you expecting? Wall-to-wall posters of some boy band? Huh. No, I love it. I look around with a huge grin on my face. Good, now I'm gonna beat your ass in Mario Kart again. Sit down. As she forcibly seats me on the floor and in front of a small TV, huge amounts of cute hearts gush out of all of my bodily orifices. Ella goes over to Jake's room and brings the N64, and we start playing. This is heaven. She kicks my ass in Mario Kart again. We switch to SF. She kicks my ass yet again. Next, we try to split screen 007, and guess what? She kicks my ass again. She fires up the PS and starts showing me MGS. I've never played MGS until then. Yeah, don't judge, okay? She starts telling me about the story, going crazy excited, shows me the controls and starts watching as I fumble around, laughs at my stupidity and ineptness every now and then. I play and play, lose myself, immerse myself in the excellence of MGS, then I pause the game and realize that she has fallen asleep with her head on my shoulder. Her sweet vanilla and berry scent filling my lungs once more. She looks peaceful and happy. I quit the game and put down the controller. I gently embrace her exquisite body, putting my arms behind her back and under her beautiful legs. The thin veneer of her skirt rolls back, revealing her thighs. I carefully carry her to bed, tuck her in, just look at her, and appreciate her unbelievable beauty for a moment. It's 3 a.m. Her parents must already be asleep. I don't have any way of returning home. I turn off the TV and the lights, grab a pack of neatly folded shirts and use them as a makeshift pillow, and curl up on the floor. It's hard to fall asleep. The floor is too uncomfy. I hear shuffling behind me. I figured she must have been turning around in her sleep. Then I feel her hand on my back, then over my shoulder, and she rests it on my chest, pulling a thin sheet of blanket over both of us. Her small feet play around and curl up next to mine as she spoons me. I grab her cold hand and press it firmly against my chest. She mumbles and plants her face at the back of my neck, and I fall asleep, madly in love. The next morning when I woke up, she was still sleeping. During the night, we ended up facing each other. When I opened my eyes, I found myself looking at her angelic face. Her hair was all over me. Her hand was still holding onto my shirt, like the time it was back on the plane. I could feel her breath on my lips. I wanted to stay there. More than anything, I wanted to lay next to her forever, and I wanted to kiss her so much. but all I could think was Nicole's face. I carefully reached for my phone in my pocket. Nicole left me a text. "Hey you, wanted to surprise you before you go to Hong Kong. I'm in LA. Call me when you wake up. I love you." Smiley face. Oh shit, I go pale. My mouth dries up. My heart starts beating to a fight or flight moment. I gently put Ella's hand down and back off without waking her up. I grab my things and exit the house without anyone noticing. I call Nicole. She tells me to meet her on Venice Beach. Grab a bite to eat on the way. Coffee to wake up. The moment I see her, I realize the mistake I've made. My hair's all messed up. I'm still wearing yesterday's clothes. I didn't even brush my teeth, and my entire body smells like Ella's perfume. It's too late. She sees me and starts running towards me and jumps in my arms. She digs her lips into my mouth, holds me tightly, starts kissing me. Then she slows down and then completely stops. Her hands and arms lose their grasp on me. Slowly, she pulls away. She gently pushes me back to take a better look at me. She sees the guilt and fear on my face. Her pupils dilate. She starts turning red. Her eyes fill with fury and anger like nothing I've seen before. Her right hand pulls back and flies into my face. It lands perfectly. My ears start ringing. My vision is blurred. She doesn't talk. I don't have anything to say for myself. I just stay there with half of my face completely numb. Unable to face her. Unable to look her in the eyes. She slowly turns around and starts walking. Looks back. "You come in?" She looks at me with tear-filled, mad eyes. I obey and start following her. We sit on a bench overlooking Venice Beach. We sit there for a few minutes before she finally asks me, "Did you sleep with her?" She doesn't look at me. "No." "Did you kiss her?" "No." She stops for a moment. I realize what's coming and it's too late. She turns to me with a face full of tears of anger. You're in love with her?" I can't say anything. I just sit there, my head as low as it can go. "For how fucking long, Anon?" Her voice trembles. "How long?" she asks again, barely audible. "I don't know." She hesitates for a moment and then starts talking again. "I should have known. For the past month, you were all Ella could talk about, Anon." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wake up to the shock of this revelation. She talked to you about me?" I ask her, with a skeptical and messed up face. "Yeah." She opens her eyes wide, sarcastically. "Can you believe that? You became her number one friend, her confidant, her BFF. She violently finger quotes her snappish remark. I don't have anything to say to Nicole. And I can't be angry at her for getting close to you, Anon. She stopped. "But you." She gets close to my face and puts her index finger sharply to my chest. "You should have known better." Tapping my chest with her finger. "Answer me, Anon," she whispers. "Answer me." "What?" I turned to her. She jumped back with a surprise. This was the first time she has seen me scream at anyone, let alone her. "What do you want me to say, Nicole? That I love her? That I care for her? That no matter how I feel about you, I can control how I also feel about her? That even when you and I were just friends and Ella was with Pete, I couldn't help but feel a strong desire for her?" Nicole didn't talk. She just stood there and watched me talk with a heartbroken face. "What do you want me to say, Nicole? What do you want me to say? That the first thing I felt was relief when Pete told me that she broke up with him?" "Okay," she whispered and stared into the distance. We continued to talk, getting angry at each other at times, but it was more upsetting than vexing. After an hour of furious argument, we were tired. Even when pissed off, Nicole didn't hold back her love for me. She got close to me and put her head on my shoulder, and we started watching the sunset. "You know what, Anon?" She spoke kindly, like a whisper. "There isn't enough intimate tricks in the world to keep you away from Ella." I froze. I felt like a sharp object has been pierced through my chest. And there isn't enough small jokes, bouquets of flowers, or boxes of chocolates that Pete can come to her door with. She sighed, so he can hold on to Ella. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. And it's all right, Anon. No matter what we do, you guys were made for each other. She spoke as she gave it into reality. So you go ahead. I told you that you were mine until we both decided otherwise. And we both decided otherwise. You know that. I sat there, with Nicole's head on my shoulder, staring blankly into the crowd of people on Venice Beach, knowing that there's no amount of rights I can make to fix the wrong I did her. The person who loves me so blindly, so vigorously, that even in the moment of her defeat, she still wanted what was best for me. Just do one last thing for me, she whispered. I turned my face to her and kissed her with a passion like I never have. She held my face in her small hands and broke our bond. Go, she said, trying to hold back her tears. Go before I change my mind. Go. She started to cry. Holding her hand, I got up. I hesitantly started stepping away. Our arms stretched and reached their length as our fingertips grazed each other and broke away. I started walking backwards, looking at her, realizing what I have done, feeling like shit. Nicole wasn't looking at me. Her head dropped. The palms of her hands were trying to hide the tears. She was quietly sobbing. I gasped for air and forced myself away from her, trying not to think about it. Running away like an asshole, I must have walked for 3 hours, not knowing what to do. It was getting late. I finally made my decision. I hailed a cab and gave the driver Ella's home address. I arrive at Ella's house. I approach her door, not knowing what to do. I ring the bell. The door stops. My heart stops when I see her. She lowers the cell phone from her ear, looks at me. That was Nicole. She shakes the phone in her hand. Her beautiful green eyes are bloodshot, tears running down her face. She closes the door. Ella, I breathlessly shriek. I turn my back to her door. I start walking and then collapse. I start crying like a bitch. This is just too much. First Nicole and now Ella. The door quietly clicks open again. The afternoon sun casts a shadow over me. The shadow eagerly waits. What did she say to you? I can barely speak. That you love me more than her? You stupid fuck. A cold hand grabs my collar and pulls me with force. I stumble and walk to Ella's door, following her stern pace. Tears and snot on my face, ugly as fuck. As I pass through the doorway, she turns around, violently slams the door with a flick of her hand, and pins me to the shut door with force, stuffs my face with her lips. My heart is beating like a jackhammer. She just stays frozen, her lips nailed to mine, her chilled hands hanging from my collar. Her intense kiss gently becomes tender, and she stops kissing me. Clumsily wipes my wet face with her hands, sporadically chuckling her heart out while crying tears of joy. You look like shit, she laughs nervously. I smile and laugh. Come on, you need a shower. She drags me to her bathroom and gives me fresh towels. I take a shower for an hour, trying to calm my nerves, trying to make sense to this calamity. I take way longer than usual, knowing that when I get out, I'll have to face her and have a talk. I finally get out and wrap myself with her towels. Go to her room. Ella is in her PJs. Her hair is wet. She must have had a shower too. She's sitting on her bed all curled up, holding onto her legs. She has a deeply concerned look on her face. I sit next to her and stare at the wall, expecting a million questions. She simply says, "Go ahead. Say it." I don't understand. I mean, say what? Say it. She tells me again with a calm voice. I love you. Good. She puts her hands on my face and her lips on mine and gives me the warmest, most gentle kiss I could have imagined. We fall back to the bed. She embraces me. While her freezing hands caress my skin like ice, her hot, soft lips brush against my face like a velvet cloth. I hold her tightly. She opens her arms and lays back, presents herself to me with an innocent smile on her face. I take my time and study with her. I don't want to rush anything. My parents are gone for the day. We're all alone. She sings playfully. And then you know where this is going, and I'm not going to read this anymore because this is a lot of physical stuff, and yeah, they get freaky, majorly freaky. And I'm not reading this because we're just not that type of channel. This is a sad and scary stories channel, and so yeah, geez, I'm just reading through this, skimming through. Nope, not gonna read this. But apparently they love it. Obviously, this guy's in love with her. OP's in love with her. And Ella seems to like him. I can't tell off of Ella. But then it was almost dawn when they woke up. Ella woke up with me. I have to tell you something, I told her. She looked at me, scared and upset. I have to go to Hong Kong for 2 months. Today. I won't be able to spend the rest of the summer with you. Whatever she was expecting, hearing this news relieved her. She sighed and planted a passionate kiss on my cheek. It's okay. We'll see each other in school. She whispered to me softly. After all, I have you now. I couldn't have been happier. Hong Kong seemed like a punishment after everything that has happened, but I knew Ella would wait for me. Ella sent me away, convinced me that if we spent even more time, or if she would come to LAX to see me off, the distance and time would be even harder to bear. I agreed. As I was dragging my feet to leave her, I kissed her so much she had to physically push me away, giggling with a sleepy face. Go now. Go or you will miss your flight. I went home, hastily packed my bags, and left for the airport. All I could think of was her. The cab driver had to ask me where to like 3 times. After I landed and got settled in Hong Kong, we started talking on Skype. It was new back then and the connection was shitty, but it was way better than nothing. Every day we would talk, sometimes for hours. There was so much time difference. I was almost an entire day ahead of LA, but we made it work. Our intimacy was not limited to just intimacy in real life, and our friendship was more than just ambiguous flirting. The things we shared, the moments we lived, even though they were digital and thousands of miles apart, I was still in heaven. A month later, I came home from work one day, and there was no response to my calls. I figured she must be busy, or out, or something else came up. Didn't think much of it, and went on with the rest of my day. Next day, same thing. Well, unless you are a seriously paranoid person, you don't think of worst case scenarios until your buddy calls you. Didn't remember how I responded to that. I still don't. I only know what Pete, Mom, and Dad told me. Turns out, I dropped the phone and was unreachable for an hour. Don't know what happened in that hour. Then they say that I called my folks. By then, Pete told them already, and they knew I wasn't going to be able to make my way back on my own. As I was speaking to or screaming to Mom, Dad was already buying plane tickets. I didn't realize my mom was crying on the phone, knowing her son was in so much panic and she was unable to help me. I was screaming so much, my voice was all but gone. At some point, my dad picked up the phone, trying to calm me down. Years later, I asked him once, just once, what happened that day. Never seen a man that white as he told me what happened. How terrified he was over how I was feeling. I asked him because the only thing I could remember was Pete telling me, "She's gone. She's gone." I talked to Pete one more time before Dad arrived. That I do remember. You go numb after so much pain and start behaving like a robot. He knew I wasn't going to be at the ceremony with him. We talked about things no one wants to know. But you just have to know. Like what happens to a car traveling at 60 miles an hour when it gets rear-ended by another car. Starts spinning and stops when it wraps around a telephone pole. There was nothing anyone would want to look at. No open casket. Just a box. While her family was burying Ella, I was on a plane back to the States. Didn't have the power to go to LA and be there with her family. Didn't want to go back to college and be all by myself. I just wanted to go home. A year has passed since Ella's death. Mom and Dad were trying to play it cool. Pete was the only one keeping me sane. He too was affected by Ella's passing. But he was stronger. He didn't love Ella the way I did. Nicole was keeping her distance, avoiding me as best as she could. On the anniversary of her death, I decided to visit Ella's grave. Got on a plane to LA. I still remember the first time I walked through those cemetery gates. It's never easy to visit the dead. I found her and stayed there for an hour, just crying, not knowing what to say. I'm not a religious person, and I don't believe in the afterlife. I had this feeling inside me that no matter what I said, she wasn't there to see or hear. After a while, a boy walked up to me. Her brother. Young Jake, too, came to visit her sister. We hugged. You should come and visit my folks, Anon. They'll be happy to see you. I accepted his kind invitation. When we arrived at their home, the air was thick, filled with sorrow. Her mother smiled when she saw me, held me in her arms as if I was her own blood. "Oh, am I so happy to see you," she cried. They were relieved they didn't have to be alone that day. Ella's father was already half drunk, but he was joyful when we started talking about Ella. Jake was sitting between his mom and dad. They wouldn't let go of his hands the entire time, drawing power from knowing that they were not alone, and that Jake is still here. After talking about Ella, reminiscing what little time I was able to spend with her, her mom showed me into Ella's room. The room was left untouched. Nothing was changed since I've been there more than a year ago. Even her neatly folded clothes were still on her chair, her video archived, her anime posters on the wall. Her mom opened a drawer and took out a CD case and a letter and handed them to me. "I believe these are for you, Anon." She put them into my violently shaking hands. She kisses me on the forehead and left the room. I sat on the bed in which we had the chance to spend a single night together. A single night. I looked at the CD case and immediately burst into tears I was holding back before. Crying my eyes out, I started reading her letter. The letter she couldn't send to Hong Kong. Pick-related letter and the CD case, and we'll get into those in just a moment. After I read the letter, I was in the fetus position on her bed, crying. The love and the loss were too much. Someone slowly sat next to me, and I felt a familiar hand on my face. I put my head on her lap while Nicole caressed my hair and calmed me down. "I'm here," she whispered, and hugged me as she too quietly cried. And then the OP posts 2 pictures, one of the curse of Monkey Island and the inside, and then a picture of the letter. And let's read the letter that Ella was supposedly going to send to the OP. It reads, "I hope you're doing well in Hong Kong. I miss you. And I'm cheerfully assuming that you miss me too." Smiley face. "But surprise, I got something for you. Unfortunately, this was the only copy I could find. It's a pirated version I got from ex-Bulgarian guy on eBay. He works just fine. If you get bored and tour longing becomes unbearable, imagine yourself in the Caribbeans, and I'll help you save Ekin from the curse. Love from LA. Your hooray, Ella." And then the final post from the OP reads as follows. "Next semester, Nicole and I got closer. She stopped avoiding me and we became friends again. She understood what I've been through, and although I've broken her heart, she knew I didn't mean to. She knew how much I loved Ella. She knew the love I felt for Ella didn't mean I didn't value her. 2 years later, we started dating again. Moved to Chicago together. Another 2 years after that, we got married. And I slowly forgot about Ella. While organizing old stuff at our house, I came across Ella's letter and the MI3 CD case. When I started feeling bad, she convinced me to write the story down so I could get it off my chest. "I don't want to read it," she said with a sad face. "It'll be too much for me, but you have to write it down." Her love and care were heavenly. "You need this, Anon." I accepted. Last night, after I finished writing my story, Nicole convinced me to frame Ella's letter. I looked at her. I was almost about to cry. She gently held my face in her hands. "It's good to remember, Anon." And she planted a tender kiss on my lips. She was a good person. You loved her and she loved you. I don't even know what to say. I framed the letter and put it on my nightstand. We got under the blankets on a cold winter night. We cuddled. She embraced me and placed her head on my chest and softly whispered into my ear, "You're mine, Anon, and I'm yours." And as I've said before, she was almost asleep, with an amorous smile on her face. Until such a time comes we both decide otherwise, nothing will change that. And I fell asleep next to the woman I loved, embracing the woman that loves me. And this is the end of my story. And I can kind of see why people call it one of the greatest green texts of all time. I mean, it's just such an emotional roller coaster. It starts out with him loving her, and then it ends out working out, and the day they do the deed, he leaves, and then she dies in a horrible car accident. Just wow. And it just feels so real to me and true, because I mean, most people during a traumatic time can't remember the details, and during the details, he couldn't portray it that well. So it seemed very true to me, very authentic, and very sad. But just wow, that's just a crazy story. I mean, this was not a usual Snook scary story for you, but it's a green text classic, so I thought I had to read it for you guys. And I found a interesting post of someone saying, taking a look at the Ballad of Ella, true story or fake. And so we're going to get into that for everyone who thinks that's a fake story versus true. So let's get into this post. Someone says, "In case you have not read the Ballad of Ella yet, I highly recommend you do so. Now, if you did, you might wonder whether or not that story truly happened. While I cannot say so without certainty, I did try my best to find out, as there didn't seem to be any information in that regard. Let's start with what information we have. The original post was from 2015, and Anon said 10 years ago when he was 19 and a freshman. It might be he is referring to the start of the story, freshman year being 10 years ago, or the second semester, i.e. the start of the story being 10 years ago. Depending on that, the year Ella died would be either 2005 or 2006. Pete had taken fashion classes for 4 months. Summer came, Anon and Ella spent about 2 months together in LA. At one point he writes, that night, Ella wasn't a couple months old friend. It's safe to assume the time frame of the story is about half a year. That puts Ella's death somewhere between the end of June and the end of August. She died in a car accident in California, somewhere in or around Los Angeles. As Anon seemed to lodge so far from Ella's place, he had to be picked up and dropped off every time with no other option. We cannot be 100% sure it was Los Angeles. Finally, we cannot be sure that Ella was her real name. Even though it was on the letter, it might be short for Elizabeth or other similar names. What we were looking for, a young 18 to 21-year-old with a possible nickname Ella who died in a car accident in 2005 or 2006 in California. Give him props so far. This is crazy detective work. And then he continues saying, looking for Los Angeles car accident, death 2005, or fatal car accident Los Angeles 2005 teen yields no success. Narrowing the search to articles from the years 2005 to 2006 doesn't turn up anything useful either. Neither does including all of California. Browsing obituaries for the year 2005 will show that no Ella under 35 died. Neither did one in 2004, 2006, or 2007. Given she might not actually be named Ella, I started looking into death records of people aged 18 to 21 who died in California. Lo and behold, about 200 people between 18 and 21 found their untimely death in 2005, but not one of them bears a name you can shorten to Ella, save for two Michelles, who died on the 10th of August at age 18, but was cremated and had no brother. Instead, she had a half dozen sisters, which already rules her out. And another Michelle who died end of July 2005. Problem with her is that she doesn't appear anywhere else. No car accident news, no obituary, nothing. Also, the story makes no mention of a birthday, which is important because this Ella would have had hers a week later. All that and the fact that she was only 17, a bit too young to go off state to university, makes it unlikely this is the story's Ella. Death records for 2006 yielded about 250 kids between 18 and 21 who died. Only one of them could have had a name that would fit Ella. That person last name was Elizabeth, age 21, who died on August 29th in a car accident. Though it was no perfect match, in the story, Anon was told that Ella had died or been rear-ended by another car, while this Ella was hit by a wrong-way driver. It can, however, very well be said that she tried to evade the oncoming car, which led to it hitting the rear, spinning her into a telephone pole. I'd count that as rear-ending. Did I mention this was in the interstate? Ella was hit at 60 miles an hour. Either way, both accidents ended in a way where an open casket doesn't seem like an option. She also had a sister, not a brother from what I found, which is a detail too big to get wrong. Conclusively, it can be said that the story might actually be true. Unlikely, yes, but there is a person who would fit Ella's age, time, and the cause of death. Personally, I thought it was fake until I went back and took a closer look at the time the original post was made, which made me question if the events really took place in 2005. The person fits nearly all of the criteria so well that even though Ella as a person seems impossible, I cannot deny the possibility of the story being true. I doubt it though. And so, I mean, a lot of you guys were going to speculate in the comments either way, so that kind of shortens it. Someone did the research. But I didn't mean to, jump the gun so fast. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Ella's death or speculate on it, but I just thought it was worth adding so you guys didn't need to do it in the comments. But very different story than usual. I mean, it was more like a romance novel for 95% of it. So did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not enjoy it? What were your guys' thoughts? I just thought it was a very good story, and I thought it was worth the read because it was just so different than usual. I mean, it was not a sad story or not a scary story per se, but it was definitely a sad story. And I just thought it was a great story, to be honest. But her death just came out of nowhere and was so crushing. And the OP was a great writer. I mean, the dialogue was great. The descriptions of the girls was a little bit weird, but what can you do? It's 4chan after all. But yeah, people classify that as one of the greatest green texts ever. So comment down below if you haven't heard it before. I've never read it before, so that was new for me, hopefully new for you. And if you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, join me on Patreon, follow me on Spotify, follow me on Instagram, all that jazz. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos on the channel, so check out those. I appreciate you so much. Comment down below your thoughts on the video. I read every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this is Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Some of the most disturbing events in history were recorded on tape, and then the tapes disappeared, erased, destroyed, locked away forever. Not because nothing happened, but because what did happen was too disturbing to ever be seen. Today, we're covering the cases where missing footage changed everything. A preschool investigation that spiraled into mass hysteria, a live stream watched by hundreds that ended in death, a movie scene that went wrong and was buried, and a legendary stage performance whose final moments were never released. If you enjoy videos like these, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into some horrifying lost media. The McMartin Preschool Trial. August 1983, Manhattan Beach, California. A small, simple building with a rudimentary playground, intimate classrooms, and a little sign hung up at the entrance painted in old Western lettering, which read, McMartin Preschool. It was founded by Virginia McMartin, and together with her daughter Peggy and grandson Ray Bucky, they ran the daycare without incident for 28 years. Nothing exciting had ever happened. Until 1983, when one accusation turned the school's reputation on its head. According to a woman named Judy Johnson, whose son attended daycare at McMartin, he had begun to experience painful bowel movements, and she believed her son was being harmed at school by his teacher, Ray Bucky. But the fear didn't come out of nowhere. You see, this was in the heat of the satanic panic, a worldwide phenomena where people believed that Satanists were endangering their communities. And Judy Johnson believed her son was exploited by Ray Bucky for his own sick satanic pleasures. She would make several more accusations, including daycare workers having inappropriate contact with animals, and claiming that Ray flew in the air, which of course is insane, but the public didn't seem to think so, and neither did the police. The investigation began immediately. Ray Buckley was interviewed and questioned for hours, but at the end of the day, there was no proof, no medical records, no history of abuse. The only adult witnesses would have been his family, who surely would lie on his behalf, so the only witnesses left were the children. On September 8, 1983, just one day after Ray Bucky's arrest, the Manhattan Beach Police Department sent out a bulletin to over 200 parents of students, former and current, that read, Dear parent, this department is conducting a criminal investigation. Ray Bucky, an employee of Virginia McMartin's preschool, was arrested September 7, 1983 by this department. The following procedure is obviously an unpleasant one, but to protect the rights of your children, as well as the rights of the accused, this inquiry is necessary for a complete investigation. Records indicate that your child has been or is currently a student at the preschool. We are asking your assistance in this continuing investigation. Please question your child to see if he or she has been a witness to any crime or if he or she has been a victim. Our investigation indicates that possible criminal acts include, and I have to change this because it was pretty graphic, but basically touching the students in their no-no square under the pretense of taking the child's temperature. Pretty disturbing stuff. Also, photos may have been taken of your student in their no-no area as well. Any information from your child regarding having ever observed Ray Bucky to leave a classroom alone with a child during any nap period, or if they have ever observed Ray Bucky tying someone up, is important. Please complete the enclosed information form and return it to this department in the enclosed stamped return envelope as soon as possible. We will contact you if circumstances dictate same. We ask you to please keep this investigation strictly confidential because of the nature of the charges and the highly emotional effect it could have on your community. Please do not discuss this investigation with anyone outside your immediate family. Do not contact or discuss the investigation with Raymond Bucky, any member of the accused defendant's family, or employees connected with the McMartin preschool. There is no evidence to indicate that the management of Virginia McMartin's preschool had any knowledge of this situation, and no detrimental information concerning the operation of the school has been discovered during this investigation. Also, no other employee in the school is under investigation for any criminal act. That little annotation at the end is completely correct. There was no evidence, no indication that any crime had been committed from either Ray or the faculty. It was a he said, she said case from the start. But the actions of the police department make it abundantly clear. They weren't looking to exonerate him. They weren't even looking to investigate him. In their minds, he was already guilty. The organization that hosted the interviews that interviewed the kids was called Children's Institute International, an LA-based abuse therapy clinic run by American social worker Key McFarlane. And what they did was an affront to medical science. In the hunt for the supposed crime, they created the crime. In the heat of the satanic panic, normal, everyday people were more susceptible to fear. They believed something was happening, and they needed proof, no matter the cost. The people interviewing the kids ended up asking them suggestive questions, or leading questions. These are questions that not only justify the interviewer's own bias, but these kind of statements skew the perspective of the interviewee. For instance, instead of asking, "What happened at school?" they'd ask, "He violated you, didn't he?" Not much room for interpretation. Not much room for alternative facts or new perspectives. That's a yes or no. And if someone said no, they'd reword that same question over and over in 100 different ways until the answer was yes. And once they got that yes, it was a wrap.
Raymond Bucky, his sister Peggy Ann, their mother Peggy McMartin Bucky, grandmother Virginia McMartin, and 3 teachers were all charged with sentencing 18 children at the McMartin preschool.
By the end of the interviews, 360 children were apparent witnesses to the crimes of Ray Bucky. And according to them, he did more than kill a horse. The children had also seen witches flying in the air. They'd traveled by hot air balloon on occasion, were taken deep underground through a network of tunnels beneath the school, taken to parties at airports and car washes, and one even claimed to have entered a secret room by being flushed down a toilet. And I am seriously not making any of this up. This was the bulk of the accusations. That is, of course, excluding the physical aspects of the crimes. 360 children, 360 testimonies, physical injury, exploitation, warped supernatural stories. Most of those interviewed were photographed without their clothes, not by doctors, but by a quote-unquote medical examiner who identified tiny scars or pieces of skin that supposedly indicated systemic abuse. And all of these interviews were taped. Every single one. Days worth of footage. Lie after lie. They recorded each child, hypnotized into lying about a single man, interrogated for hours on end, regurgitating the ludicrous, imaginary scenes, fed to them by a scared community of unqualified, irresponsible idiots. And during this period, Ray Bucky was still in jail, where he would remain for another 5 years while the lies piled up. Day after day, more evidence would come forward. Another child, another story, another evidence of his monstrosity, and he would have to wait longer, rotting in a cell while the investigators hammered in nails. And there's more. During the pretrial, Judy Johnson, who made the original accusation, was hospitalized for acute paranoid schizophrenia. All of the testimony she made, all of the accusations that started this snowball of chaos, fear, and consequences were made by a mentally ill woman. And to me, that's incredibly sad. Not only was Ray Bucky falsely imprisoned because of these claims, but if officials cared enough to question her a little more, they would have realized she was ill. And she might have gotten help, but she didn't. And in 1986, before the preliminary hearing concluded, Judy Johnson died of chronic alcoholism. The preliminary hearing lasted 20 months, and in the end, Ray Bucky was acquitted on all charges.
Trial.
As to counts 3.
On January 18th, 1990.
Count 9. Count 12.
After 124 witnesses.
Count 14.
1,000 pieces of evidence.
Count 56. Count 57.
and $15 million of taxpayers' money.
59.
The longest and most expensive criminal trial in U.S. history came to an end.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the very defendants not guilty.
The case lasted 7 years and cost 15 million taxpayer dollars. But we aren't here to talk about how ridiculous this case is. You can see that for yourself. No, we're here to talk about the tapes. And although the tapes no longer exist, I found a transcript from the McCarthy trial and a Dr. Michael Maloney testifying on his experience watching 40 of the tapes. Here are a couple of quotes from the transcript, edited for decency. In almost all cases, the interview started with drawing a picture that was typically outlined by the interviewer. After that, there was a procedure where they went into naming body parts, the specific focus being on the private parts. There was then an introduction of so-called anatomically correct dolls, with the focus again on the private parts of the dolls. There was an introduction of pictures of students and teachers from the school, where persons were identified by the examiner and by the child, with specific focus on certain teachers in the school, and sometimes the child himself. There was an introduction of puppets as a method of presenting information. There was an introduction of the nature of these dolls, that they were dolls that you could not find in a store. There was an introduction of variously referred to yucky, sneaky, and tricky games. There was an introduction of Ray Bucky being a bad person, surveilled by police. There was an introduction of bodily functions in terms of Ray Bucky, and what that might look like, and so forth. Those items were in almost every case here and in many others as well. The defense asked the doctor about reinforcement. How was it done? And the doctor says this: if a child were to have identified a private part of the drawing, the dolls were then introduced, and the interviewer say, "What was this part again?" If they answered correctly, the reply would be, "Great, you're smart. You're really a smart kid." That's the reinforcement, as well as this. There is an implication, if not a statement, that there is something wrong. At this point, from the children, we don't know if there's anything wrong or not, but saying, "These dolls help us figure out some of these things," presents the idea that there is something that needs to be figured out. So that's a strange setting behavior as well. There's ground laid out, we're going to have to work on something here. In some of the tapes, there's something much more specific, saying that negative things happened. There are words like yucky used very frequently in these statements. We're using the dolls as an intermediary. The dolls will help us figure it out. This is where you could really get into the risk of a fantasy problem. You are removing responsibility from the child. You're not saying to that child, "I want you to tell me what you know." You're saying, "We can use the dolls. They'll help us." The McCarthy preschool trial is one of the most horrifying American witch hunts in our modern day. The fear of Satanism put an innocent man in jail for 5 years, with no recourse for the lies told against him. In my opinion, everyone was a victim in this case. Not just Ray Bucky, but 360 innocent children, subject to intense interrogation, and whose very minds were warped and molded into engines of fantasy. What should they think as they grow up? What's real? What isn't? The feelings of guilt, shame, and confusion must have been so immense for these students. And although the tapes have been destroyed, we can only imagine what kind of damage they dealt on their unwitting participants. Abraham Biggs. On November 19th, 2008, a 19-year-old boy named Abraham Biggs opened his computer and made a post on a forum he visited every day. The title read, "Ask a guy who is going to OD tonight anything." Inside the thread, Abraham listed the drugs he planned to take, wrote a brief note about what he was dealing with, and shared a link to a Justin livestream, an early internet streaming site. He wasn't joking. He was inviting people to watch. As the minutes ticked on, more and more people joined Abraham's live stream. These were the people he considered family. I know it's kind of sad, Biggs wrote. He felt he couldn't talk about his troubles offline. He didn't want to bother anyone, but he felt comfortable talking with the family he'd made on bodybuilding. In fact, he had posted about wanting to end things a couple times on the site, and today he was going to commit. Before long, hundreds of people were watching the live stream. Abraham had a laundry list of medications in front of him, but he hadn't taken any yet. He was waiting to talk it through, and as his family from Bodybuilder joined the stream, they encouraged him to do it, laughed at him, coaxed him on. Those people who actually wanted him to live didn't know what to do, where he was, or who to call. And while the small few worked to save his life, the rest were content with watching. Like a man on the ledge in the crowd below, these people wanted him to jump, a poor, sad boy who needed help in the comfort of his community, encouraged to end it all. Abraham swallowed a handful of medications. He laid down for his final rest and never woke up. Eventually, a site moderator managed to contact emergency services, but when they arrived at the residence, Abraham Biggs was already gone. According to investigators, the chat was still live with a little less than 200 people, and most were expressing their shock or their amusement. They turned off the camera as the chat log rolled on. OMG, LOL. It had been 12 hours since his initial post. Now, I just want to say, this story completely broke my heart. It was unnecessary, completely preventable, and the fact people were sitting around encouraging him to do it is disgusting. Beyond disgusting. The people who encouraged him are monsters and cowards, plain and simple. A 19-year-old boy needed help, and the people he called family pushed him over the edge. And I'd like to say I can't believe people would act like this, but I can. The internet is a hole sometimes, and it's the sad truth. I'm not surprised. His father was of a similar mindset. As a human being, you don't watch someone in trouble and sit back and just watch. Now, on Justin, the live streaming site he was live streaming on, all of the live streams were recorded. They had an automatic archiving feature that would save live streams as videos, and Abraham's video was saved. We don't know how long the footage was up, but it was later removed by Justin after heavy backlash and destroyed. It no longer exists on the internet, and for good reason. CEO Michael Seibel stated, "We regret that this has occurred and respect the privacy of the broadcaster and his family during this time. We have policies in place to discourage the distribution of distressing content, and our community monitors the site accordingly. This content was flagged by our community, reviewed, and removed according to our terms of service." He also encouraged viewers to be more vigilant and active in the future. So, at least officially, the video no longer exists. The company doesn't either, as a matter of fact. It would later become Twitch. But the memory of Abraham Biggs lives on, a haunting reminder of what people are capable of in the depravity of the internet when left to its own devices. The Crow. November 27th, 1940, San Francisco, California. A Chinese-American boy is born under the name Li Jun Fan. His father was an opera singer and had traveled to the States for an opera tour in Chinatown. Given his US birth, he was a citizen, and after a string of messy teenage fights in Hong Kong and his father's brutal opiate addiction, he, at the age of 18, moved to Seattle, Washington. Here, he would continue training in martial arts and become one of the biggest movie stars of all time, single-handedly bringing martial arts to an American audience and becoming the first Chinese-American superstar. While his birth name is Li Junfan, you know him as Bruce Lee, and he was a sensation. Beginning his career on the television show The Green Hornet, Bruce Lee was responsible for popularizing Wing Chun, a Chinese martial art that focuses on close-range, hand-to-hand combat. He was asked to fight more like an American, but he refused. And the style he showcased was so incredibly popular and foreign to American audiences, it wasn't long before he was showcasing those same skills in other hit movies. The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Game of Death. Of his 8 biggest movies, they grossed an incredible $740 million, or approximately $4 billion adjusted for inflation. And that isn't shocking, considering, well, the guy was a powerhouse. According to his contemporaries, Bruce Lee's style of fighting was so fast, it couldn't be seen on camera. He had to slow it down for audiences. He was a master of martial arts, one of the most valuable entertainers of his day, and gained global recognition for it. But unfortunately, his star was fading. On May 10th, 1973, Bruce Lee collapsed during an ADR session for one of his movies and died at the hospital. Several of his movies were released posthumously, and Hollywood went into mourning. Who could replace the wickedly talented martial artist? Who could fill such big shoes? Well, thankfully, another Lee was coming of age. Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee. Bruce had taught his son everything he knew about martial arts, and by the age of 5, Brandon was capable of kicking through a 1-inch wooden board. As a child, he attended his father on set and became interested in the movie industry. And by the time he was in his early teens, he decided to become an actor. After his father's death, Brandon was determined to continue his father's legacy. And although he found some minor success doing smaller films like Showdown and Little Tokyo, he didn't achieve mainstream financial or critical success. The studios and the public didn't know if Brandon was capable of achieving the same success as his father, so Brandon waited patiently, picking up smaller roles, until he got his big break. The Crow. Written by James O'Barr after the unexpected death of his wife, The Crow was a comic book release series released in 1989, and before long, it was an underground hit. The plot of the story is a little convoluted, so I'll boil it down to the fundamentals. A rocker named Eric Draven and his fiancée are brutally assaulted and killed, and 1 year later, Eric is resurrected by the spirit of the Crow and goes on a revenge mission to kill all the people who killed his fiancée. It's a macabre, supernatural superhero thriller. The actual conception of the film was complicated. Originally, when it was first being pitched to studios, the first major studio approach ended in a withdrawal because they wanted it to be a musical starring Michael Jackson, which is crazy, but it was the 90s. Eventually, it made its way to New Line Cinema, who wanted the film to star either Christian Slater or River Phoenix. In development, it was discussed bringing in Brandon Lee to star, but the author, James O'Barr, didn't see it. He didn't think Brandon was right for the role. He didn't believe Brandon could reach deep and dig for the gritty character he'd written. Eventually, Brandon convinced him, dropping 20 pounds to star as Eric Draven, and after months of debate, he'd gotten the role. The Crow was going to be Brandon Lee's big break. It was a big title with a principal role, and it would break Brandon out from the martial arts typecast. They began filming in February of 1993, and in March of that same year, just a month after they began shooting, tragedy struck. Brandon was filming a scene where his character, Eric, is shot after witnessing the assault and murder of his wife. In the scene, actor Michael Massey's character, Funboy, shoots Eric with a .44 Magnum as he walks in the room, and for this particular scene, they would need a close-up of the gun. Now, typically, the guns we see in film and TV aren't real. At least, most aren't. When guns are shot in close-up, they will sometimes use real guns, but the ammunition will be fake. These fake rounds of ammunition are called dummy rounds. Essentially, they are real bullets, but with no powder or primer, meaning when the gun goes off, it doesn't fire, but it looks realistic because it is, in essence, real. Normally, production would purchase commercial dummy bullets for a scene, but given the tight shooting schedule and an even tighter budget, production elected to make the dummy bullets themselves. They did this by pulling the bullets from live rounds, dumping the powder, and reinserting the bullet, but the primer remained. For those of you who aren't familiar, the primer is essentially a small explosive. When the gun is triggered, it ignites the primer, which in turn ignites the powder, which sets off the gun. Now, without the powder, it wouldn't fire an actual bullet, but if the gun were fired, the primer has enough force to launch the bullet. Not far enough to leave the barrel, but just enough to get it stuck. 2 weeks before the scene, witnesses reported seeing an unsupervised actor firing that gun with the homemade dummy rounds. And all of this led to the fatal day. The lights were hot, the set was decorated, actors flooded the soundstage, and with the call of action, the cameras began to roll. Michael fired the gun at Brandon Lee, which was primed with blank rounds. Now these rounds are different. Blank rounds are rounds of ammunition with powder and primer, just no bullet. But the prop supervisor hadn't checked the gun, and in the barrel was the stuck bullet from 2 weeks earlier. So with primer, powder, and now a bullet, Massey pulled the trigger. And to everyone's horror, Brandon Lee was shot, square in the abdomen. At first, they didn't realize. Brandon was supposed to fall forwards, but oddly, he fell backwards. When the director, Alex Proyas, yelled cut, Brandon didn't move. He thought Brandon was just acting or playing a joke. That was until someone checked his pulse, and it was dangerously slow. Brandon Lee was rushed to the hospital. Attempts were made to save his life, but they were unsuccessful. And after 6 hours of emergency surgery, Brandon Lee was declared dead. Production debated whether or not to continue the movie, and after months of deliberation and legal obligation, they did. Seeing how Brandon only had 3 more days of shooting to complete, they rewrote part of the script, shot some of his scenes with body doubles and early CGI face replacement, and the movie was complete. The footage of Brandon Lee's death existed for a time but was destroyed after a thorough police investigation, at the request of the Lee family. It will never be recovered. And frankly, it's for the best. The Crow went on to gross $94 million at the box office, which is about $140 million today, and is Brandon Lee's biggest hit. A cult classic, well remembered, and an undebated success. Rest in peace, Brandon Lee. Siegfried and Roy. Sticking with the theme of entertainment, enter Siegfried and Roy, the power couple magic act that took Las Vegas by storm for almost 40 years. And originally, I wasn't going to include the two magicians, but this story is so insanely good, I just had to include it. Here it goes. First, let's meet the showstoppers. Both Siegfried and Roy were both born in German-occupied Europe under the Stormtrooper armband boy regime. I can't say the group because of YouTube's guidelines, but it's the 1940s in Germany, and the dictator has a funny mustache. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, both of their fathers were alcoholics, violent, rage-filled soldiers. Siegfried found an escape from his abusive household in the performance of magic tricks. He picked up a book on magic at a young age and practiced all through his adolescence. He enjoyed card tricks, optical illusions, and fun trickery. It brought him joy, making family members laugh and leaving his friends in awe and amazement. Roy, on the other hand, took a liking to animals. He had taken care of his family dog for many years, and with this newfound responsibility, he came to love any creature with 4 legs, and the more exotic, the better. A family friend founded a zoo in Bremen, Germany, so Roy had access to exotic animals from a young age. Eventually, both of them naturalized to the United States and started working on a cruise ship. At the time, they didn't know each other. Roy had taken the job to escape his abusive family, working as a waiter and bellboy, and Siegfried was performing in a small magic show on board. One night, Roy challenged Siegfried to pull a cheetah out of his hat, which obviously Siegfried couldn't do. But the request had intrigued Siegfried, and they met up after the show. The two were enamored by one another. Their chemistry was undeniable, and before long, they were performing together, and people loved them. It was clear early on, their charismatic personas dominated any stage. Eventually, and I'm not making this up, the two were fired from their cruise ship gig for smuggling a live cheetah on board the ship in a laundry bag, which is both hysterical and batshit insane. But you know, this was the 60s. Things were different in the 60s. In 1964, the owner of the Astoria Theater in Roy's childhood neighborhood of Bremen saw the two performing on a Caribbean cruise ship. She loved them immediately and hired them to perform at her nightclub. From there, they had a long and outstanding European career, performing all across the European nightclub circuit. And around this time, they started working with tigers. Siegfried and Roy were known for their big cat shows, specifically the use of white tigers and lions. They were the centerpiece of the magic act, not just visually striking and dangerous, but specially trained to perform. The tigers and lions were just as important as the magicians themselves. They gave the show an almost mythical air, disappearing behind clouds of smoke, jumping through hoops, and defying reality. The two performers weren't your typical circus ringmasters, abusing their animals and beating them into submission. They actually truly loved their big cats. They raised each of them from cubs. Roy would personally cuddle with these animals, take photos, talk to them, and hand feed them. There was a trust built between them, a bond. They were also lifetime conservationists. They ran a private compound with dozens of exotic animals, not just tigers and lions, and they took pride in their respectful symbiotic relationship with the great beasts of prey. In 1967, they were discovered by promoter Tony Azzi and asked to perform in Las Vegas. And the rest is history. They performed across Las Vegas for over 36 years. Casinos opened on the promise that Siegfried and Roy would perform, and the draw they had internationally meant a lot of business for Vegas. Together, the pair earned an incredible $300 million over their career. But it all ended in 2003, when the unthinkable happened. A show began at the Mirage Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Siegfried and Roy were about to go on, performing for about 1,500 audience members. The crowd was electric. Everyone expected their typical performance, a world-renowned spectacle, dazzling and amazing. But what they got instead was bloodshed. The tiger's name was Manticore. He was a 7-year-old tiger, raised by the duo, and had been performing with them for years. Now, the exact details of the event are widely debated, but what we do know is that, for whatever reason, as they were performing, Manticore missed his mark. He'd never done that before. The stagehands found it odd, in fact. Siegfried and Roy found it odd. Roy tried to redirect him, but the tiger was confused. For whatever reason, he wasn't sure what to do. His behavior was off. Now, maybe it was the crowd, the flashing lights, the applause. Maybe it was just an off day for the 7-foot, 400-pound tiger. But regardless, something was wrong. The tiger was being stubborn. Roy attempted to give Manticore a more direct command by gently pushing the tiger's head. This was a trick he'd used 1,000 times before. Sometimes the animals got confused. They needed more direction. But Manticore wasn't having it. He pushed Roy's hand away, refusing to move. And what happened next is predominantly anecdotal, coming from the audience members who were in attendance. Apparently, Roy tried to signal the tiger again, and this time, Manticore nipped at his hand. Not seeing the danger he was in, Roy attempted once again to get Manticore to move. But Manticore, confused and angry, didn't listen. He bit Roy's wrist. The crowd was confused. They didn't know what was going on, whether or not it was all part of the show, until the music stopped and the stage went silent. Now, Roy had been doing this for years, and he knew this was a dangerous situation. So he took the microphone and smacked the tiger with the rubber head, calling for it to release his hand. Manticore obeyed. The conflict seemed to have ended, but the devastation was just beginning. Attempting to back away, Roy fell on stage, right into the waiting paws of the frustrated Manticore. Now, for those of you who don't realize why this is bad, tigers are instinctual hunters. It didn't matter that Roy had worked with the animal for years. When he fell, the tiger saw him as prey and acted accordingly. Within seconds, Manticore was on top of Roy. The massive tiger bit into Roy's neck and dragged him out of sight. Blood pooled all over the stage. Siegfried jumped into action, trying to get the tiger to release, but Manticore wouldn't budge. Once backstage, the stagehand used fire extinguishers to beat Manticore. And finally, after what felt like years, the tiger let go, running back to his cage. The tiger's teeth had torn Roy's jugular vein, narrowly missing his carotid artery. State medics quickly stopped the bleeding, and all the while, Roy, struggling to breathe, shouted what could have been his last words: "Don't shoot the cat. Don't shoot the cat." A final plea to keep his beloved tiger alive. Roy was rushed to get medical attention. En route to the hospital, he repeatedly called Manticore a great cat and insisted that no harm come to him. Later, he would claim that he had suffered a stroke on stage and that the cat was actually attempting to help him after seeing Roy fall. Over the coming weeks, Roy experienced more stroke-like symptoms and survived damage to his spinal cord from the attack that left him partially paralyzed. Now, like I said, this account of the event is anecdotal. It might not be entirely accurate. It's based on witness testimony because the Mirage refused to release the footage of the attack. That's right, the whole thing was being taped. When asked to release it, they outright refused, only releasing it to Siegfried and Roy themselves, who chose to keep the footage private. As to protect their privacy, that's what they said. I don't know how this constitutes a privacy concern, but whatever. They're cats, their business. But because of this, the footage was never released. And after the attack, the duo stopped performing. Manticore Tiger lived a peaceful life before his death in 2014 at the age of 17. Roy died in 2020, and Siegfried died a year later after being put on hospice for pancreatic cancer. After the attack, the pair attempted to move on, choosing to live a more private life. But no one could forget the terrifying event. It stained their legacy, and today, their magic act is remembered mostly for the horrible event that ended it. And alright guys, that wraps up some horrifying lost media. What did you think about today's video? I thought all the cases in this video were super unique and I've never heard of any of these before. So did you enjoy them? Did you think it was interesting? And if you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out some other videos on the channel if you enjoyed this. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. Please subscribe to the channel, follow me on Spotify, follow me on Instagram, all that stuff. I appreciate you guys watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.